Right, hereby call to order the Roseville Economic Development Authority for Monday, September 15th, 2025. Mr. Executive Director, would you call the roll, please?
Member Schroeder?
Here.
Member Brock?
Here.
Member Bauer?
Here.
Member Strong?
Here.
President Rowe?
Here. And with us at the dais, we have our city attorney on my right at the end, Rachel Tierney, and our city manager and who is the executive director of the Economic Development Authority. On my left at the other end, Pat Trudgeon. We'll make introductions of other staff and participants as agenda items come up. I would note for members of the public that we do have a complete set of meeting materials on the back table next to the exit door under the big clock in a binder that can be shared amongst members of the public. That should be all the materials that the council is considering this evening, or in this case, the EDA. And then also there are extra copies of the agenda on the same table that are available for individuals to use and refer to during the meeting. I will also note that we do provide opportunities for public comment during meetings, and usually there'll be an opportunity for comment on each agenda item as that agenda item is taken up. And then at the beginning of the meeting, we also do provide an opportunity for general public comment on items that are not on that evening's or this evening's agenda, just to give you kind of a lay of the land in regard to that. Then finally, I would ask folks if you have a cell phone to silence it or otherwise assure that it doesn't disrupt the meeting. And with that, we'll ask folks to stand if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on our EDA agenda this evening is consideration of approving the agenda. And as always, I'll check with staff first to see if there are any changes that staff request to be made to the agenda this evening.
Yes, Mr. President, we do have one removal. That would be 5B, which was to authorize the collateral assignment of the development agreement and TIF note for 2720 Fairview Group Avenue, LLC. There's just a few more documents that need to be finalized, and we're still working on that, so we're not going to be able to take that up tonight. Since the closing is at the end of the month, I would ask that we bring this back next Monday, the 22nd, for final approval of the documents. We think it's pretty straightforward, but we want to make sure we have all the documents in place here. So if it's all right, we would remove that from any action tonight and schedule that for the 22nd.
All right. Are there any changes that members of the EDA would like to make to the agenda this evening? Not seeing any. We don't have any consent items on the EDA. So is there a motion to approve the agenda with the amendment of removing item 5B?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by member Graff, seconded by member Schroeder. Any discussion on the motion to approve the agenda as amended? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed. That passes unanimously, and we have our agenda for this evening. As is normally the course with the Economic Development Authority meetings, we'll forego the general public comment at this time, and we'll take that up at the beginning of the council meeting. So we'll move right into our business items. Our first business item this evening is item 5A, which is to receive a presentation from the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance representatives. And we have Kim O'Brien here this evening representing the Alliance. And we welcome you up to the table to make a presentation, give us an update on what's going on with the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance. Welcome.
Thank you. Is it Chair Rowe?
President Rowe.
President
whatever.
Rowe. Sorry. Thank you, President Rowe. Thank you, members of the EDA. My name is Kim O'Brien, and I'm here representing the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance, of which you are a mighty 1/3 of. I want to just start by acknowledging the significant investment by the city of Roseville over the past 10 years now in a community that was badly neglected for many years, both by the public sector and by the private sector. And I want to thank you because the city of Roseville has truly been a leader in stating that those conditions of community neglect and the people who live there could not stand any longer. And had it not been for the leadership of the city of Roseville in standing strong along with our partners in Maplewood and in St. Paul and in Ramsey County, had it not been for the leadership of Roseville in managing a professional services contract or Had it not been for the leadership of Mayor President Rowe here in attending and representing the city on the board of the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance, then I think that we'd be in a much different position than we are now today. So I want to acknowledge that investment and thank you all. I've seen each and every one of you at community events in Rice and Larpenteur, supporting local businesses in the Rice and Larpenteur community, listening to constituents of our neighborhood, and actually doing things to make it better. I also want to acknowledge Executive or Director Trajan, too, for his early leadership in the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance work, and Director Janice Gunlock, too, for her stalwart leadership of this incredible work. 10 years ago, you sat together with leaders of St. Paul and Maplewood and declared to each other and to the community that the conditions of the Rice and Larpenteur Gateway area were not conditions that could be sustained. Back then, it was not abnormal to hear stories and headlines about major gun battles and shootouts in our local strip malls, pedestrian fatalities and crashes as kids and elderly and workers cross Larpenteur Avenue and Rice Street. It was not uncommon to see boarded up buildings, blighted parking lots. It was not uncommon. And the problems of the Rice and Larpenteur area, I don't want to sugarcoat, they remain, you know. While I'm really proud to say that at a community meeting, leaders from your police department and Maplewood and Roseville all demonstrated clearly that there was a significant drop-off in violent crime in the last 10 years. But that quality of life issues remain for our community members. So the work continues, but I'm incredibly proud of our progress. So over the last 10 years, some of our accomplishments together have been to improve our roadways. So changing Larpenteur Avenue from, a 4-lane road with no pedestrian infrastructure to a 3-lane road with designated turn lanes and pedestrian refuge islands that have made it immeasurably safer. Your leadership in supporting the redevelopment or the reinvestment in the former Brittany Marion apartments to now with over 600 some odd units in that to a place where people can be proud to raise a family and call home. The continuation of a pathway from that important building with many families living in it to our beautiful Lake McCarran's County Park. And then just across the street in the St. Paul side, a significant and visible improvement to the parking lot that included addition of sidewalks, improvement of lighting in the parking lot, reduction of dangerous driveways, and even our beautiful Rice and Larpenteur Gateway sign welcoming everybody to a neighborhood we are all proud to share. Those are just a couple of the accomplishments of our work together. And when I say our, I don't mean Rice and Larpenteur Alliance as in the organization I help staff. I mean the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance as in an organization that 3 cities have come together to found and support over the last 10 years. Throughout the year, we do great work in bringing community together to create moments of unity, to support our small businesses, to connect residents with resources that support their lives. So we have a community-wide event in each of the 3 cities, including at Lake McCarran's Park in Roseville. We bring our neighbors together for a comprehensive community cleanup every year. And we've started a series of networking lunch and learns for local businesses and residents who want to come together and learn about resources and network. Those are just a few of the things that we do. I'm joined here today by my colleague, Mai Chi Zhang. Mai Chi is a daughter of Roseville, grew up in this community, and came to this work with a strong passion for our neighborhood. And I'm really proud she's celebrating 2 years with our organization now and has led an amazing youth internship program in which local neighborhood kids in the Rice and Larpenteur neighborhood get involved in leadership, decision making, and community engagement in Rice and Larpenteur. So I just want to thank my Chi and also acknowledge the sense that Rice and Larpenteur Alliance, which started just a few of us, have now become something so much greater. Our new board of directors is representative of local businesses, local neighbors. I've been very proud to sustain the support of our elected officials in all 3 cities and in Ramsey County. And that strong governance and support from community means that Rice and Larpenteur Alliance's work is only just beginning. The county is now constructing Rice Street, as you guys have seen, in the area south of Larpenteur Avenue in St. Paul. That work has basically brought to life, if you haven't driven it lately, brought to life a vision on paper that happened 10 years ago. We see a shared pedestrian walkway. We see expanded sidewalks. We'll see neighborhood scale lighting. We'll see a much safer and greener street. And that work, Ramsey County intends to continue. So they'll head south into St. Paul, and then they'll continue north on Rice Street into Roseville and Maplewood, so that residents of our community can cross the street safely, businesses can thrive, and we can attract more investment from housing developers and small businesses and create jobs. The Metropolitan Council has also, as you know, declared Rice Street to be a bus rapid transit route, which means that transit opportunities, which had been determined to be lacking in our community for a long time, despite the significant need from our neighborhood residents, will be greatly expanded with reliable service and supported bus shelters and great stuff like that. The other note I just want to say is that the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance, you guys have invested significantly over the last 10 years in this work, and I want to make sure that you know that your investment has had a significant return. So we've been able, as the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance, to leverage this professional services grant opportunity, this contract opportunity, to draw down further grants from Ramsey County, from the city of St. Paul, from other cities, and from philanthropy and private investment that go directly into the community. So whether that's paying our youth interns for their work so that they can come and support Rice and Larpenteur events, whether that's direct investments into local businesses to improve facade and signage, whether that's investments into beautification, like planting flowers and planting trees. This is the kind of work. So ultimately, I believe the return of investment, and I would love the opportunity to quantify it, would probably be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. What I'm very excited about for the next year is that Rice and Larpenteur Alliance, if you think of it as a pilot project, if you will, how 3 cities come together, create a community organization to sustain and grow a shared vision. The proof is there. The community looks and feels different. And now, but yet the vision is far from being accomplished. So what I'm excited about now is that we have the opportunity to scale our work, to scale our operations, to do more to support our local business community, to do more outreach and support of developers who share our vision for growing opportunities and job development and housing, and to ensure that the Rice and Larpenteur organization is there much beyond my tenure or yours, and that the community vision can be achieved in the long run. I'm hoping that this year the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance can become its own 501c3 nonprofit organization, such that we will be more attractive to philanthropic funders. We've done a lot of work in the development space and have prepared ourselves for that effort. I think we're at the point now where we need strong governance. We need to keep creating relationships. And, I am I'm really confident in the support of our municipalities to continue building on the success of the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance work. I would stand for any questions, but I do want to say thank you for the dedication you've shown this Rice and Larpenteur community over the years.
Well, thank you, Kim, and wanted to highlight one other aspect of probably the last year or so, or maybe more than a year of the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance, and that was a significant effort that we were able to receive assistance from the Technical Assistance for Brownfields program of the federal government to do a pretty comprehensive analysis of the corridor, the sites, development potential, obviously brownfield, indications on different properties, and just kind of a wealth of information that is now updated into our vision plan that's available for site selectors and developers and people interested in looking at making investments in that community. I think that's something that sort of maybe has flown under a lot of people's radar, but I think that can pay a lot of dividends down the road in the terms of and in fact, I think on the St. Paul side, there's, if I remember right, 3 sites that have been identified as sort of ripe for redevelopment, and more analysis and specific looks at those sites has been done in addition to the more general analysis of the overall area. But it's got information about, large sites, ownership, vacant versus, redevelopment of existing buildings and that sort of thing. So it's just kind of a wealth of information that's all available at the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance website. For anybody who may be interested in looking into that and learning more about the opportunities in that community. So I think that was something that was big, and something that I don't think we knew about as we went into this. It just happened to be that we made the right connection with the folks at the federal government to be able to take advantage of that, and I think through probably some connections with some of our board members who have experience in that area, no doubt. But it's just an example of how this organization has been able to put together information and connect resources for the betterment of that whole community. So I wanted to highlight that as well. Not suggesting that Kim left it out or anything like that, but just maybe
No, I think I did. Thank you.
Well,
it's a big deal.
But just, people sometimes ask, well, what is the benefit of the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance? What has it done? And I think that's, along with, I think, the significant assistance to local businesses in terms of signage and facade improvements, which we've seen all 3 cities have benefited from, or businesses in all 3 cities have benefited from. I know we've done a lot of support efforts for local businesses, and that's been huge too, and bringing business, entrepreneurs together who may be in their first effort to own a small business in a community, and really being able to connect people with each other, but then also with those resources that are out there. So it's not just helping people in their individual lives and making those connections, but also a significant investment in helping the business community. And I think that's a perfect tie-in with Kim's other role with the St. Paul Area Chamber, that just sort of has some good synergy there. So I wanted to mention that as well. But I'll certainly open it up if council members have questions or comments. Councilmember Schroeder.
Actually, aren't I a member because we're EDA?
Oh, right. Member Schroeder. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Kim. I know we've had a number of conversations. I appreciate all the hard work you've done. I think there's a lot of people in our community that aren't familiar with this, and you talked about there's all this work that needs to be done to get to what's trying to be accomplished. Could you possibly talk about what would it look like, or what would be happening if the vision is accomplished, so that the people could understand what it is that this organization is trying to achieve?
Thank you so much. Is it Commissioner?
Member.
Member Schrader, thank you. What a great question. The vision for the Rice and Larpenteur area, remains the same from back in that community developed vision adopted in 2018. Although I'm really proud that we have kept that updated so that it remains relevant for 2025 and beyond. Through this work with technical assistance for brownfields. Nonetheless, Rice and Larpenteur area is a safe and vibrant community center for the people who live there, many of whom are young families. It's one of our most diverse and densely populated parts of the entire region. These families choose Rice and Larpenteur Alliance to raise their families because of the proximity of the beautiful parks, because of their proximity to job centers, because of their ability to access transit, because of a safe, supportive, and diverse community full of amenities, mostly created by other community members running small businesses like grocery stores and restaurants and service providers. There's local community banks. The Rice and Larpenteur vision envisions additional affordable and market rate housing, a mixed use of housing, because we have found that the population of Rice and Larpenteur has exploded, but very few new units of housing have been added to the area. So a mix of housing, including single-family home ownership, all the way to, medium density of market rate and affordable housing for families. We envision more jobs for community members, more entrepreneurial office space for the community members who want to start and run businesses. This community is full of amazing independent, locally owned businesses, many of whom are minority-owned businesses or immigrant-owned businesses, and they contribute so greatly to the fabric of our community and also to their own families and their own staff. So I envision more and more spaces for those businesses to start and grow, and for family supporting jobs. When Ramsey County has the opportunity to come up through Larpenteur Avenue with the road reconstruction, I see a safer Rice Street and a healthier Rice Street with more greening, more pedestrian amenities. I see a community that, whether you are in an apartment building at McCarran's View or a single family home on the lake, you consider yourself part of a beautiful lake community in Roseville. So yeah, I see a neighborhood that's home to tens of thousands of young families and working families who are contributing and proud of their community.
Great, thank you.
Other questions or comments, Councilmember Strawn?
I just wanted to say again, thank you for the work that you've done. When I was in college, I lived on Rice Street, right off of Rice Street, and I recall Rice Street being 4 lanes, 2 lanes in each direction that could go 55 to 60. I'm not sure that was posted, but I definitely remember that being the way. And so you would never want to walk near the street. It just wasn't conducive to walking or biking. And I remember having a bike and wanting to walk, and it was not a possibility. But I know it's been a couple years back now, but just the work to get that grocery store in as as a long-term problem property we were able to get that closed. And I see in the age of strip malls being vacant and boarded and sitting empty for eons and eons, I can only attribute to the work that you and the community that you've built that's helping you build this community there, that we don't see that in those properties, and that they look like a vibrant space, because even way back when, it wasn't necessarily, there was kind of islands of things, but there was a lot of space in between where it wasn't conducive to spending time, and certainly not as a family. And I bike around the lake quite often, and it's an amazing assortment of people from all over the world, all ages, who get to appreciate this space. And I appreciate that just being an extension of that neighborhood. It doesn't matter if you live on that side or this side or which address you're in. It's just a place where everyone connects, and I really appreciate that as someone who gets to use the space. So thank you for your work.
Oh, thank you, Member Strand. Appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments, Councilmember Groff? Member Groff.
Thank you for the work. Obviously, I was surprised here 10 years. It has gone fast, but in some ways it's gone fast. I know it's been a lot of work too, because we've all been involved with the different volunteer opportunities you've provided, and I think those are community building, and I just want to call those out because they're kind of nuts and bolts things, but just the trash collection events that you have. It makes the area more beautiful, and it's something you can do together, and you can see the results of it at the end of the day. So I think those, and also the art project at McCarran's Lake, when we did the mosaics, and I know that Councilmember Etten at the time and I were there putting up those pieces, and it was like, at first I thought, oh, this is good, but it was really fun, and it was kind of you were interacting with the other people from the neighborhood. There were kids there and so on. So I think some of those are real strengths, and I know we're not finished. Quite often these types of things are actually never finished because there's always another goal that we could accomplish, but I think we have come a long way. And the last thing I wanted to say is to thank Mayor Rowe for all his work on that, because you did a lot of lifting with that organization and as a member from the beginning and reporting back to us, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Member Groff. I literally have seen all of you at Rice and Larpenteur community events. I'm sorry you didn't call on me, but it's really inspiring to see local leaders give back directly in the ways that you all have. I'm looking even at Director Trudgeon. So thank you. It's really meaningful, and I believe that this city is a true leader in coming to the table to make, not only start the Rice and Larpenteur work, but to sustain it. And I'm not sure we'd be there without your leadership.
Well, thank you, and thanks to everyone, both on the Alliance staff as well as all the volunteers. The young people are amazing. I know for sure we wouldn't get everything done without them, so they deserve a special round of applause and appreciation. But no, I think it's one of those efforts that it's sometimes when you have another meeting to go to, you can say, oh, I got another meeting to go to. Almost never is the case with meetings regarding Rice and Larpenteur Alliance, and so it's the kind of service that really is inspirational to be involved in and keeps you coming back for more. So thanks again, Councilmember Bauer or Member Bauer.
Thank you. And thank you for all your work. Following up on something you said, I noticed in your year-end report, you list a bunch of corporations, community partners. It's kind of a who's who list of that. I was wondering if you could comment, because it has been 10 years, since that original vision, and obviously if you look at that vision and where we are, we still have a lot of work to do. I was wondering if you could articulate kind of the challenges you're hearing from these community partners, because you have some investors, builders, developers, real who's who on this list. Can you articulate, the challenges that they have and their hesitation for, developing that, and kind of some of the ideas you have looking forward to kind of move that along?
Thank you, Member Bauer. So,
and if we could help out, or what you would ask of us to make that happen.
that's a great question. Thank you. We launched the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance Community-Based Advisory Board in February 2019. 2 weeks later, the schools shut down for COVID-19, the pandemic. I think it was a challenge we were all ready to face before the pandemic, and the pandemic hit, and we had a whole new set of challenges as we did throughout the entire city and world. Small businesses have had a hard time recovering from those challenges. The smallest service-oriented businesses like those at Rice and Larpenteur were the hardest hit. Also, the families who live in Rice and Larpenteur and the Rice and Larpenteur neighborhood were some of the hardest hit in that pandemic and what came after, the recession after. Civil unrest affected our community. So after the murder of George Floyd, I went and visited our Rice and Larpenteur businesses with my broom and my dustpan because several got broken into and there was broken glass, and I wanted to check in. And that further hurt our local community and our local businesses. So we're all in recovery mode, and I appreciate that the 3 cities who invested and the county decided early on in that journey that we would reinvest, that we wouldn't walk away. And the Community-Based Alliance board said, no, we need to do more, not less. We're here together for a reason in this time, for a reason. And we were able to address a community need right away, even distributing thousands of rolls of toilet paper from the Maplewood Costco to our community members. Those challenges were real and their impacts are lasting, not just in Rice and Lavender, but all over our community. Things that have prevented some of the advancement in some of the redevelopment efforts have been procedural in nature. Leadership changes at city levels, leadership changes on the board, and the continual work that we need to do from a governance perspective to ensure that everybody on our leadership committee and all of our city partners and municipal partners understand what role the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance should take in the redevelopment process. If we should be proactive or reactive, we don't own or develop property ourselves, so how we engage our local property owners in that process, how we set a vision that doesn't feel prescriptive or let our community down when they don't see the pretty picture on the paper come to life. So continually looking back at that vision and thinking what can be our best strategy for actualizing it, and how do we ensure that all three cities and the county and the community are in lockstep as far as steps taken and our role in doing that work. Specifically, there's been a few redevelopment opportunities that developers have had to walk away from because of lines on maps. There's a low-income housing tax credit opportunity that is eligible on the Roseville side and ineligible on the Maplewood side. Lines on maps have been Rice and Larpenteur's problem for a century. And in that case, that line on that map made it such that a development couldn't go through as planned to build housing on that Maplewood side in that example. I just met today with a business owner on the St. Paul side. If you guys have ever been to the Coffee Cup on Rice and Arlington, you know that there was a fire about 10 years ago and it's been vacant for many, many years. This family bought the Coffee Cup, changed it to the Perfect Coffee, and invested, I can't even imagine how much, in renovating the space and high quality ingredients. They even hired the old chef from the Coffee Cup to come back. He lives in the neighborhood and cook. Anyhow, he was describing how challenging it is to have access to capital, how he goes to the bank and he has a hard time getting a loan because he says the bank didn't want to invest in his vision because they weren't sure that the local market could support the level of quality and price point of his restaurant. So I think small businesses, even those investors that are investing and putting their blood, sweat, and tears and all of their family money into these businesses to grow them, are still facing challenges with technical capacity, marketing support, the image of the neighborhood, and just frankly access to the investment capital that they need to grow. Those are a few examples of things preventing us, but my hope is now we've gone through this process of determining our role in the redevelopment process, which is to be a hub of information, to be a champion of our vision, and to be a connector between municipalities, private investors, and community members and businesses, such that we can help direct energy and resources where possible and support that effort. And, you know, the role is kind of hard to define, but I know for sure that it makes an impact. So I think we have the opportunity now to grow in that effort and to start to actively market with this land inventory that President Rowe alluded to, that we could start to actively market and reach out to developers to demonstrate the type of development and the type of community we have to create some of these real life things. I always joke that I love the community events and I love the marketing and I love that neighborhood feel that we've been able to foster. And I also want to put a shovel in the ground and cut some ribbons at some point because all the building blocks are there for building for the future.
Thank you. I like your point about talking about connecting can you just talk a little bit about how you go about doing that? For example, when a parcel comes up, for example, like the LZ came up for sale, when an opportunity is like, comes up like that, what does the Rice Lumberton Alliance do? I mean, I assume you have a lot of things already in place, right? Just waiting for an opportunity like that?
Thank you for the question, Member Barr. I think that our capacity is growing to do more of that proactive development, more of that awareness. I think that it's an area that the Alliance can and should grow more into, figuring out how to be notified when those properties come up for sale, developing that kind of bench of interested businesses and developers and investors who want to come and take advantage of those things, and then connecting to resources. For example, part of the technical assistance grant we got was also to create something called a resource roadmap. So a comprehensive directory of resources available in all 3 cities and the county and the state and the Metro Council, as to how an interested developer that matches our vision might access some of those resources. So an example could be, there's a vacant parcel. We know we want a daycare center as part of the vision plan and the market study. We would be able to go and talk to the development community and the business community to leverage those resources and try to bring attention to the area, and then say, well, if this area happens to have contaminated land, these are some resources that you can mitigate that, which reduces the cost of redevelopment and improves our environment. So I think there's a lot of more work we can do as the RLA, and as we grow and scale our efforts at the redevelopment side of our work, will be better to take advantage of those opportunities as they arise.
Yeah, and from this list of partners, you have realtors here and everything, so I think you're in good shape to make all those connections. And final question, it's wonderful that you're trying to become a nonprofit. I think that'd be good. I was kind of disappointed in the year-end report not having the financials, but with the 501c3, those will be there. I think that'll be very helpful for us to, as you mentioned, we've been investing for 10 years, a significant sum, and I think having those financials will really help us justify to other residents, why we continue in the amounts that we're talking about, and actually show that dollar return as you're discussing here today. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again for being here this evening and providing this update and all the work that is done the other 364 days of the year, minus vacation time. We do really appreciate that as a community, and I think once again things are coming together, and I think, as you were saying, the next steps are to start making more of the connections and growing those capacities. So we look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Next on our Economic Development Authority agenda, item 5B was taken off the agenda because that's not ready for consideration quite yet. So that brings us to item 5C, which is to discuss looking at our 2026 and beyond professional services agreements. And we have our Community Development Director, Janice Gunlock, who is also a active participant in the Rice and Larpenteur process over the years, just coincidentally, or not just coincidentally, but coincidentally, to talk about our professional services going forward at the EDA. I'll turn it over to Ms. Gunlock.
Thank you, President Rowe, members of the board. The EDA has contracts with 5 consultants for various economic development specialty services. They're outlined in detail in the report, but we work with Ellers for public financing, Golden Shovel for our Grow Roseville economic development marketing, the Center for Energy Environment on our home loan origination, home advisory services, the Metropolitan Consortium of Community Developers. They administer a small business loan program on the city's behalf, and then Kenny and Graven for our EDA legal services. These contracts are generally for 3 years and they expire at the end of this year. I do want to make one comment, one exception. The Kenny and Graven agreement expired at the end of 2024. The cost of these services are paid in 2 ways. One, the most common one, is they're billed directly to a project or a developer, so the EDA does not incur any cost. And then, of course, the second is costs incurred by the EDA for specific services that are not attributable to a specific project. The cost of these contracts ranges from $0, which is the MCCD one, to about $40,000, which is what we pay generally CEE on any given year for some of or all of the services that they offer. And again, the written materials outline the specific services. These economic development services are very specialized, and we are unaware of other service providers who could fulfill a lot of these duties. For example, Golden Shovel does our economic development marketing. We're unaware of any other consultant who specifically works only in the economic development marketing realm. And so they are the sole provider for that. MCCD, they work with the county to provide free business consulting for all of Ramsey County, so there's a lot of synergy in working with them on our small business loan program. In terms of home administration or loan origination, there is another local company. The city has worked with them in the past, and we have been unhappy with the level of services that they've provided. I think if you even go back, the default rates for a lot of the loans are substantially higher, and right now we're at 1% or less. And so sticking with them is something that we would really recommend. And then over the years, we have either gone out for RFP or have solicited for proposals for legal and public finance assistance. I think last time we went out for public finance assistance proposals, the only person who responded was Ellers. And again, these are very specific specialty services, which is why we're probably not getting a lot of interest. And the overall cost of the EDA under the contracts is usually very small. Even our attorney services is less than $15,000 annually. And for these reasons, we would recommend entering into 3-year extensions with Ellers, Golden Shovel, CEE, and MCCD. In terms of our legal contract, we are only recommending a 1-year extension. We would like to go out for RFP next year, or at the very least, solicit proposals from at least 3 different law firms and bring those forward for your consideration. We have reached out to all of the providers, Jeannie has, and we have included their rates in the packet. MCCD has no cost to the EDA. Golden Shovel's willing to keep their costs flat for 3 years, but they would want to decrease the level of services that they're providing to us. Jeannie is working directly with them, and we'll bring back more details about that in November if you're interested in continuing to work with them. Mostly they write articles on our businesses in town, and then those are promoted via the Grow Roseville marketing website as well as our social media. And so there's going to be a decrease in the number of businesses that could be highlighted if we want to keep that cost flat. Ellers is proposing a 1.5% inflator every year for 3 years. CEE is proposing increases ranging from 3 to 15% depending on the specific service that they're offering, because you'll see in the packet they do several things on our behalf. And then Kenny and Graven is proposing a 19% increase. Staff believes the proposed 2026 budget as presented to you in July can afford these cost increases based on what is in that budget. And based on the direction that you provide tonight, we would bring back contract extensions for your consideration in November. But with that, I'm happy to address any questions and take your direction.
All right, thank you, Ms. Kunlach. Questions, Member Bauer?
Thank you for the presentation. Do you know, or can you comment on every city has an EDA, or many cities have EDAs. The challenge, they must be facing these same challenges with a small selection of vendors. I'm assuming that's true. Is that?
I imagine that is why. I have been in conversations with a couple of different communities who have recently gone out for RFP, and they've struggled to even get 5 vendors to respond to the RFP because economic development is a very specialized service. That is why the rates are significantly higher as well. We had an economic development attorney with Kenny and Graven that we worked for a long time, and she retired. And I think that's also the case. There are some attorneys who've worked in this specialty who've recently retired, which is really limiting our options.
And just for clarification, we're happy with the services that we're getting from Ellers and CEE as currently. I just want to make sure, because you went through a number of them. I just want to make sure that we're
Absolutely.
happy with both those.
Absolutely. Ellers is a very important contract because they actually underwrite all of our projects to make sure we're not overly enriching a project or a developer. There's only one other consultant who works in the public finance realm, and they do not do that, and I would not recommend working with them for that very reason. And then CEE, we have a very, very, very small default rate. I think it's less than 1% or zero. We've had 0% default rate, and you'll see during some of the information we provided on the EDA fund balance, we've got a significant amount of loans out, that money that's out there waiting to come back, and we've got a 0 default rate with them. And the other thing with them is they provide home advisory services and can connect residents with contractors if they are looking to do projects. The other vendor that's local does not do that, and we've seen people not able to move forward on projects because they don't have those connections. And so that's why we'd like to maintain our relationship with CEE as well. And they're a one-stop shop. There are other out-of-state providers who we could work with, but they don't provide the one-stop shopping experience that a resident gets with CEE. For example, maybe they want to do a home loan, they want to do a home improvement project. Maybe they don't qualify for our revolving loan project, but they might qualify for another project that maybe Minnesota Housing or the state runs. And so having that sort of ability to one-stop shop is something we can't get with another provider.
And then regarding Golden Shovel, since you're looking at November to hear back, or you're currently in process there, what would you like us to do regarding that contract? Wait till November, or bring this back in November and
I think
extend
that
at that time, or make a decision now?
Well, Member Bauer, we're not actually asking you to take action on any of these tonight. We want to make sure you're comfortable doing extensions with these 5, because then we would bring back the actual contract extensions in November. With Golden Shovel, Jeannie has been directly communicating with them on what amount of service we would continue to receive in keeping the rate flat, which is $1,050 a month. We think, again, it's highlighting less businesses, writing less articles, less promotion on our Grow Roseville website and social media channels. But we want to get that clarified and written down so that we can actually present that to you as a part of the actual contract extension, assuming you're willing to do that. The other service providers, the level of service that they're providing under this contract would not change. It's just, do you want to continue for 3 more years, and are you comfortable with the rates that we've outlined? And again, the one exception on the number of years is the Kenny and Graven. We're only talking about 1 year there.
And the marketing services are something we can do internally. I know we have a communications team, not exactly associated with the EDA, but at least.
So I don't want to speak for what type of capacity our communications staff has to take on something that another provider has been given. That's certainly something we will talk about once we understand more what Golden Shovel wouldn't be able to provide in order to keep the costs flat. But I just don't think they have the capacity or the expertise in economic development marketing to be able to connect with those businesses in a way that Golden Shovel has been able to connect with them.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I did have, just in regard to the Golden Shovel specifically, are we also talking to them about what the cost would be to maintain the current level of service? Or are we just talking to them about what gets reduced to maintain the flat level of service, or flat cost?
I believe Jeannie has talked with them about what the cost would be in order to maintain the current level of service, and it would be a minimum of a 3% inflator.
Okay, because certainly, if we decided that was a benefit to the EDA efforts, we could fund that through the fund balance as opposed to raising the levy if we set a not to exceed that doesn't include that, for instance. Just thinking about what we want to have in front of us as the menu of options as we're considering contract extensions in November. Other questions from the council or the members of the board? Member Strong.
Thank you. I know during COVID we were offering some services to individual businesses. Is that no longer the case with Golden Shovel?
That's correct, Member Strawn. We actually contracted with Golden Shovel to run our Choose Roseville program, which Golden Shovel actually went to the businesses to provide them social media help, as well as like optimizing their search on the web. But that was an extra cost that was funded with ARPA money. And when that money ran out, we discontinued the program.
I thought that was the case, but I do know from some of the organizations that were helped by it how appreciative they were. If you want to shop for luggage, they will tell you about it. So just so you know, don't tell them you weren't on council, because it was a long follow me around, tell me about that. But it was delightful, and it was really lovely to see our progress in our work in action. But I do see some of the other things that we've gotten from Golden Shovel, and I think a 3% increase of a $1,050 per month seems somewhat insubstantial compared to what it would cost to bring on a staff member for less than $15,000 a year to do the kind of work that we're asking. So I would concur that it'd be nice to know, to confirm the volume and the services being provided, because I do think it is a niche, as you indicate.
Great. If there aren't other questions, I will provide an opportunity if anybody from the public wanted to weigh in on this request to consider negotiating extensions as outlined with the service providers that we've got this information on this evening. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this item this evening? It does not appear to be the case. With that, then we've got the request to authorize the staff to enter into the discussions to do the extensions as outlined and bring those back at our November meeting. Is there a motion from the board to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Member Groff, seconded by Member Schroeder to authorize that. And did I misstate the action?
No, President Rowe, members of the board, if I could just get clarity on Golden Shovel, would you, in coming back in November, would you like us to provide you the level of service for the same cost and what it would cost to maintain our current service level, and then you can make a decision in November?
It appears to be the case, yeah.
Okay, and then the rest in
The rest
accordance
as
with staff?
outlined.
Okay, understood.
Okay,
I
thank
see
you
a
for
cost
clarifying.
increase of $378 for the year, so
Well,
I
we'll
want to
take a-
make sure that the 3% was what they want to continue
Right,
to stick with.
We
Yeah,
want to be sure about that.
have that
yeah.
conversation. Yeah.
But certainly, we could have, two alternate approaches to consider in
Yep,
November.
we can do
okay.
that. Thank you.
With that, we've got the motion before us to authorize those extension discussions as outlined and discussed and clarified. Is there a discussion of the motion from the maker of the motion, Member Groff?
No, thank you for the report. It's always good to touch base and get an update on all the different programs, because there are a few moving parts there. I wanted to mention that most of these are fees that are paid from developers and other things of that sort, so it's not coming out of the levy. I want people to understand that part of it.
Not 100% coming
Not
out of the
100%
levy.
out of it.
And as the seconder, Member Schroeder, additional discussion on the motion. All right, we've got the motion before us to authorize discussing those extensions and bring back hopefully the agreements in November for the board's consideration. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously, and that authorization is given. Then finally, discussion related to the operating fund balance in the EDA and how it might impact the levy. And I think our Executive Director, Pat Trudgeon, will bring this to the board for consideration.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So I've asked bring forward this discussion with the EDA staff so we can chat a little bit about our fund balances. It came up at a previous meeting and specifically looking at potentially using some of the EDA fund balance to lower the levy for the EDA. So I do want to present my recommendation to you on that. But before we do that, the case contains some information that might be helpful just to quickly review and present. So there's understanding of the various funds that do a variety of EDA things for the community. So just going down that list, Fund 720 came originally from HRA funds when we had Housing and Redevelopment Authority. We switched to an EDA in 2015, so about 10 years ago. That money is used for the Land Trust Partnership with Twin Cities Habitat, and we have not funded any of this fund with EDA levy since the formation. Fund 722 continues to fund property abatements. This is something that was set up probably about 15 years ago to fund the property abatements that we have occasionally to get the work done to clean up a property, and then the homeowner eventually pays us back either through the billing or through their taxes. And that's been kind of refurbished over or replenished over the years, and it's not received any EDA levy support. 723 was HRA funds originally, and we have 5 home improvement loans offered there. They're listed in there, and that's a revolving loan fund that gets replenished over time, and we have not had any levy support for that from the EDA as well. 724 was created by the HRA for multifamily projects. It was purposely built up so we could have some significant dollars for our project. So you'll see that has the highest cash balance right now. That has not had any loans go out at this point, but that has also not received any levy support. Just scroll this down here. Now, 725 is kind of what we call the general EDA operating fund. It funds all the EDA's operating expenses, the personnel, the home improvement loan administration, origination charges, energy audits, all the things that some of these contracts we talked about last time, last agenda item, do cover. So this is fully supported by the EDA levy, and I would note, and there's some specific information later in the report, that we've been looking to continue to keep that levy as low as possible, and since 2019, we've cut about $98,000 from that levy while continuing the services that we have in there. Fund 726 is a fund that provides small business loans administered by the MCCD, which we just talked about. We've had a couple loans that goes out from there. This was previously levy supported, but we have not had any levy support since 2024. And the last one is the Rice Larpenteur Alliance. It's a separate fund. We're the fiscal agent for the Rice Larpenteur Fund, so our $40,000 goes in there. That's levy supported as well as the other communities, and we pay the bills from there. So I think at the last time we talked about this, it wasn't clear whether there was an actual reserve target for the EDA operating fund. So once again, that's Fund 725. We do have a policy that states 35% of our budget. Our budget is for 2026 proposed to be $364,000. So that is a minimum of $127,000 should be reserved for cash flow, like our property funded programs. We get money twice a year, and so for cash flow purposes, we do need to have some money in the bank, so to speak, to pay our ongoing expenses. So with that in mind, and knowing that the cash balance as of September 8th was $556,000 in the operating fund, and removing the $127,000, we have about $428,000 of extra fund balance that we could use for purposes of lowering the levy or reallocating elsewhere. I am proposing at this point to have the EDA levy use $100,000 of fund balance to lower that levy. Currently, the levy that was preliminary approved in July was $364,000. That would lower it by $100,000 to $264,000. The reason I'm doing that is even though there's more dollars in there, I think we want to be cautious and careful that we don't use too much fund balance at once. Fund balance is something that if we use as a funding source, we will eventually need to make up through increases in levy or other fund balances or budget cuts. And at this point, I have not heard the need for any budget cuts per se for the EDA, but I want to make sure we're careful and move forward. This gives us the opportunity in future years to continue to look at using fund balance if we would like to, but also be very thoughtful about how the EDA is funded. So that is my recommendation, and as you are meeting as the EDA officially, I would ask that you have a motion in place to act on my recommendation or not, and lower the use or lower the levy by $100,000 by using $100,000 of EDA fund balance from 725. And certainly we can have more discussion around it. This isn't the only and last time we're going to talk about it. The council will need to set the not to exceed levy at the next Monday's meeting, but as the EDA, I thought it would be helpful to bring forward a discussion, provide some understanding of the different fund balances, and take action on my recommendation. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
right, thank you, Mr. Trudgeon. I did want to, I'll start just quickly. Do you have an estimate of what the proposed levy at 364 would be in terms of the average single-family property, and what the change to 264 with this recommendation would be in terms of what the EDA levy cost is, whether it's a monthly or annual or whatever, however you want to break it down?
If I recall correctly, it was $1.40 per month total for the levy, and this will go down to 99 cents a month. So about 40 cents less. It's about $5 less over the year on the EDA levy. Remember, the EDA levy is really small compared to the city levy. So about $5 or so, roughly speaking, over the year. Annually for the median valued home at $378,000.
All right, thank you for clarifying that. Questions from the board? Member Schroeder.
You were talking about this Fund 724 of the $1 million that had not made any loans since it was created. Could you explain why we could not take this million and use that to fund the other the other funds in here? Because I guess I'm wondering if we haven't used it for a loan and it's just kind of sitting there, could we repurpose it to the 720, 722, 723 and put that, use that as a funding source instead of just letting it sit in 724?
That's a really good question. And so the way I would answer it is if it was for the other 720, 722, 723, most likely yes. These are HRA levied funds, so they are limited to certain uses. Since those are around housing programs, my belief would be probably yes, but I think we would want to go back and really review that to make sure that we absolutely can. And we'd be happy to do that and bring that forward for discussion. If we wanted to use it for EDA funding, we wouldn't be able to do that necessarily because they were originally levied as HRA funds.
It just seems that these funds are there, and it would be nice to put them towards some of these different funds that were actually getting used. And so I'd be interested to know if that's a possibility or not. And then also, are most of these funds invested in something, or is this a cash funds? I guess I'm curious, when you talk about cash availability, are a lot of these actually in investments that over time have to be hung on to, or are they actually mostly in cash?
That's a question I'm not sure I can directly answer. Obviously, a lot of these programs have loans, and I'll have the speaker come up, that have loans out that are
Right.
outstanding, but what you're seeing here listed is the cash balance. So, Ms. Petrick, I'll let you answer.
We have
The expert.
staff who can.
I saw her in the back, so I thought maybe she would have an answer.
We invest all cash, whether in direct investments or overnight money markets. And I pool all the city's funds, including the EDA fund.
So it's short term?
Short-term, long-term, mid-term, depending on immediate cash needs. Most of the EDA, it's all pooled together. And then we allocate the interest out based on the cash balances.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Other questions? Member Strawn.
I was curious to know on the 724, if that had something to do with the Brittany Marion apartments, or foreseeing a similar situation in the future, making sure that we had the ability to make some type of changes or step in as needed, and maybe the mayor or Mr. Trudgeon can speak to that.
So I think originally when the HRA, 'cause I was working here and we talked about that, we wanted to build up a fund because we saw problems in our larger multifamily units, Brittany Marion being an example, that where we wanted to bring forward some dollars to help rehabilitate and improve those projects. So it wasn't any one particular one that was identified in particular, but as an example, what you mentioned was the idea of building that. And that was 10 years ago, and so we've made some strides in other things, and we've seen some investment, certainly in Brittany Marion. But that was the original genesis, is to create a sizable fund that we could actually use to bring to bear to make some positive changes for housing units.
Well, and given what we know about the costs of reconstruction and rehab and redevelopment, I mean, $1 million in this situation isn't going to go very far. And so while it seems like it's kind of the panacea to solve maybe some problems, it wouldn't do as much, it wouldn't go very far. And so I would hate to see us liquidate that and lose that opportunity to be available to these folks if they were in such a dire situation, which preceded me, but from what I've heard, it sounds like it was pretty bad. I was just curious to know if the current budget as presented, and I appreciate the $100,000 cash infusion, so to speak, but wondering, as the budget as presented, does it impair our ability to fund some of the projects that Director O'Brien and others have mentioned, especially around small businesses? Does that impair our ability to be available to some of the immigrant and new business owners who might seek our services?
So the proposal is to keep the budget as presented in July the same, so nothing would change in lessening of services to the extent that they help those groups that you identified. It would just use fund balance to make up that gap. So the budget would still be $364,000 instead of $364,000 from the levy coming to fund that. It'd be $264,000 and $100,000 of fund balance. So the services and what was proposed in the budget would not be reduced. It'd be the same. It just comes from two different sources of funding.
Thank you. I guess I just continue to be concerned because since I've been on the board, the EDA, we continue to have been cutting or keeping the EDA budget the exact same or less each year, and I just think that that's got to be really impactful to the outlook for the people who are part of that, to feel like maybe it's not of value, or that they, continue to do the same work for less funding. So I just know that nobody really wants to be in that position. So I appreciate that. I don't know if Director Gunlock had some additional comments about that.
Sorry, I was just listening to the conversation. I wanted to make two comments regarding some of the questions that were asked. First, regarding Fund 724. Yes, those were original HRA levy funds for multifamily projects, but we have used those funds. Most recently in May of 2023, we transferred $300,000 from that fund to 723 so that we could continue to administer loans through CEE. So that has been working for the EDA to operate those programs that are currently in place. And then the question, Member Strawn, you had about Kim's work with the RLA and some of these existing funds, could they be utilized to help some of those efforts? These funds originally incurred through the HRA I'd have to defer to the attorney, but I'm fairly certain the attorney is going to tell us that we can't use funds that originated through an HRA to fund anything but housing related endeavors, so we couldn't use those for some of the business programming or facade improvements, that kind of work that the RLA is doing. We couldn't use those funds for those efforts.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Other questions for staff? All right. I do want to provide an opportunity once again for members of the public, if anyone from the public wishes to comment on this proposal to reduce the EDA levy for 2026 from $364,000 in change to $264,000 in change by using $100,000 of our $556,000 fund balance. To do that, this would be the opportunity. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this item this evening? Right, does not appear to be the case. With that, then, we have the request before us, and is the board interested in making a motion with respect to that request and recommendation?
Motion to approve.
Right?
Second.
There's a motion from Member Strawn, seconded by Member Groff, to authorize the authorize the use of the $100,000 of reserves to fund that portion of the 2026 Economic Development Authority budget and lower the levy by a corresponding amount. Discussion of the motion as the maker of the motion, Member Strawn?
Nothing further.
Okay, as the seconder, Member Graff?
I feel comfortable with this because Ms. Gunlock has explained this thoroughly, and I think we have the funds to move it around. It isn't a huge amount, but it is a small reduction in the levy, so I feel comfortable with the motion.
All right, other discussion on the motion, Member Schroeder?
A couple of comments. Yes, in our, since we're supposed to have our fund balance at 35%, and we are much more money, because it's like we do in the general fund, we try to then, any excess money, we try to use for other purposes to keep the money, the taxpayers' money being used to do these services. So I think that makes, and I'm assuming then that this doesn't preclude any other possible changes as we go into next week, because I guess I'd want to make sure that the Finance Commission gets an opportunity to look at this also, even though if we approve this tonight, that I want to make sure that they also have this as part of something that they can look at as well.
So, yeah, and I think the answer to that would be that this is an authorization essentially to suggest to the city council or request from the city council that that we do that, and certainly we as the city council can take that into council and think about it and figure out if that's what we want to do. Certainly, if ultimately the city council sets the not to exceed levy based at the 264 level, and there was a decision to use more fund balance and reduce the levy further, that could be done because it's a not to exceed, so you can go down but you can't go up. But certainly if we decided not to, after setting the not to exceed levy, decided not to use those reserve balances to do that, then we couldn't go up. So that would be the only limitation. Mr. Trudgeon?
Oh, just real quickly, it's my understanding, I believe at least the EDA, the Finance Commission was made aware of this proposal for $100,000. I'm not sure they really discussed it, but they were released at their last meeting. I think were made aware of it, but they didn't have any substantive discussion.
Thank you.
And we do have members here this evening, I think.
I see that,
For a
yes.
subsequent agenda item. Discussion on the motion, Member Bauer.
Yeah, I think it's very good that we are reducing this by 100,000. I do think that we set these reserve policies for a reason. In other accounts, they are swept and done. I do think, while 100,000 is good, I think there is room for more given looking at these numbers. So I'd be in favor of 100,000, but I'd be much more in favor of something larger than that. And following up with what Councilmember Schroeder said earlier, I do think it's worth having something brought back to us in the future. This isn't part of the motion, to take a look at that 724 account and look at funding those other things, especially since nothing is originated from it. I think it's a very good idea.
Right, and just to that point on the 724 fund, I think I seem to recall in past discussions of that, such as when we did a transfer to support some of the housing, single-family housing programs, et cetera, that the notion was that we probably do need to continue to look at that program or because, you know, as we look at some of the programs in the 723 or whichever fund it is, those loan programs we have modified to try to meet the marketplace.
Exactly.
And I know that there's been some challenges with the multifamily program and what's in the marketplace and what those, you know, property owners are looking for in terms of finances. So I think it makes sense to look at that again. And just to the point about sweeping excess above our reserve policy, we may want to look at including the EDA in that. And I mean, ultimately the dollars are still there, but we could look at that going into, for instance, the revolving loan fund or something like that to help that. Or obviously we'd sweep it into a sweep fund and then decide what to do with it like we do on the city side of things. So we've got some options there, and I think that's all worth talking about going forward.
Right, because I think it would help us avoid the situation we're in now where we have an excess cash balance that we didn't expect, and I don't believe that's the best use of taxpayer money.
Fair enough.
But it wasn't.
We've got the discussion then. It sounds like we've got the motion before us to authorize that use of reserves for 2026 as outlined. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously, and that is authorized. That brings us to the end of our business for the Economic Development Authority this evening, slightly behind schedule. There being no further business before the Economic Development Authority, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Motion.
Second.
All right.
Wait.
I think that was moved by Member Groff, seconded by Member Schroeder. No discussion on motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously, and we are adjourned at 7:14 PM. We'll just have a short transition to the council meeting. Hereby call to order the Roseville City Council meeting for Monday, September 15th, 2025. The roll call will stand as previously called for the EDA, and once again at 7:15 PM. So we've handled the roll call. We did the Pledge of Allegiance at the start of the EDA meeting, so we won't repeat that at the beginning of this council meeting. And I'll check with Mr. Trudgeon on the agenda. Are there any changes this evening to the council agenda from a staff perspective?
Mr. Mayor, there is not.
Right. Are there any items that council members would like to change on the agenda or remove from consent for separate consideration? Councilmember Schroeder.
Yes, I'm not sure if this would be a change in the agenda or not, so I thought I'd start here. On the item number 7D, when we're talking about the campus project, I would like to see that the part about the MOC or the maintenance center be separate from the licensed passport center, so I'd like to be able to vote on those separately.
So it would be appropriate at that time to move to separate the question, and that would then separate it into two motions.
Instead of having it be D and D1.
Well, yeah, so it would be one agenda item,
Okay.
but we would separate the decision into essentially two motions that would be considered individually, if that
Okay.
works for you. I
Perfect.
believe our rules of procedure is what would allow
Yes,
that to happen.
absolutely. Thank
All
you.
right. So it's a move to separate is what you'll want to remember for that time.
Thank you.
All right, with that then, and I'll just double check, we've only got 3 items on our consent agenda this evening, which is the benefit renewals and cafeteria contributions for 26, the payment, final payment for the sanitary sewer lining project, and the service contract with Companion Animal Center for the police with the animal control. Is there anyone here for any of those items this evening? Does not appear to be the case, and so it looks like we've got an agenda this evening to approve.
Motion to approve?
All right.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Strawn, second by Councilmember Bauer. Sorry, Councilmember Graff. All right, discussion on the motion. Doesn't appear to be any discussion on the motion to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. We have our agenda for this evening. Now, I should probably repeat some of the things I said as a housekeeping item earlier in the EDA meeting. Once again, we do have a copy of all the materials that's being considered by the council this evening on the table by the back door underneath the big clock. That's for sharing by all the folks here this evening who may want to refer to that to see the materials we're considering. We do also have extra copies of the agenda for the council meeting for individual use if you'd like to follow along on your own copy of the agenda, presuming there's copies left, but it looks like there are. And then also, if you do have a cell phone, you want to be sure to silence it or otherwise assure that it doesn't disrupt our meeting this evening. And then since we're approaching our first opportunity for public comment, we'll just kind of cover some of the rules of the road for public comment. That is that by council rule, we do have a 3-minute time limit per speaker, and I try to enforce that generously, but also gently if you're looks like you're not wrapping it up within the time frame. We do ask that folks, if you're making public comment, introduce yourself by your name and either your address or street for the record. If you have a name that either isn't familiar to us because you've been here before or one that may not be a common spelling that will no doubt get wrong in the official minutes. We do have a clipboard off to the side, and when you're finished with your comments, that would be a good time to just step off to the side and just write your name relatively legibly so we can make sure that we spell it right for the record. Then the other thing is make sure that any questions or comments are directed to the City Council. We won't always during public comment be able to provide an answer to a question or provide the information that may be requested that may require follow-up. What we generally do is as questions are asked, we do make note of those, and then at the end, once everybody's had their chance to speak, then we attempt to respond to those to the best we can in terms of whether we have the information available at this time. So with that, I think, and then everybody gets one shot at public comment per agenda item, essentially. So make sure that you cover what you want to say. With that, our first opportunity,
Will there be
Councilmember Strong.
public comment about the Parks and Rec Commission joint meeting tonight?
That's a good point. Thank you. Because the Parks and Rec Commission is providing a recommendation to the City Council and no action is going to be taken by the City Council on that recommendation this evening, the thought is to hold off on the opportunity for public comment until that time when that item officially comes before the City Council for an action to be taken on that recommendation. So just to give people a sense of that, thank you, Councilmember Strawn, for asking about that, because that may have an impact on folks that are here this evening. So because of the fact that we're receiving a recommendation but taking no action on it, that would be something where once we do bring that back before the council for action, we'll make sure and provide that opportunity for comment at that time. Hopefully that works for everyone. With that, then, our first opportunity for public comment is general public comment. This is comment that is not on a specific agenda item that is on our agenda this evening, because as we've noted, hopefully clearly there will be an opportunity for comment on those items, except as noted just previously. With that, this would be once again items that are not on the agenda but may be of interest to people in the community or related to other city business that is not on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone here to speak under general public comment this evening?
Hello, Roger Hess Jr. Wagner Place. And before you get to your architect thing tonight and that, I hope you guys will consider that if you're going to close the Leaf facility, then maybe you could put the Public Works new outdoor storage area over there, move the license center somewhere else, and then maybe you could build the maintenance facility the way it's supposed to be built, all in one spot north in the Veterans Park, rather than part of it there and part on the south side of Wood Hill. I think it would be much, you've got the money, you've got the land, you should really build a proper maintenance facility rather than breaking it up and making it all inefficient things. Because I think the Leaf area is plenty big enough for outdoor storage, and if you don't have a license center on the Veterans Park, that you can still have the VFW where it is, and you should be able to fit in the complete original plan for the maintenance center. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Is there anyone else here for general public comment? All right, with that then, we'll close the opportunity for general public comment, and we'll move on with the rest of our meeting. We don't have any recognitions, donations this evening, or items removed from consent agenda for separate consideration. That brings us right to our business items. Our first business item this evening is item 7A, which is to hold a public hearing to consider approval of a request for a noise variance for the County Road D pavement project in Roseville. Actually Roseville and Arden Hills. And we have Jen Lowry with us this evening, our city, I was going to say city attorney. Wouldn't that have been a scary promotion? Our city engineer and assistant public works director. And welcome. And I know you're relieved not to have that responsibility as the city attorney. So feel free to present this item for our consideration this evening and make introductions as needed.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Council members. So this is in accordance with City Ordinance Chapter 405, which is our noise ordinance. That ordinance states that no work can be done on weekdays between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. or on weekends between 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. without a variance. And so the county has their mill and overlay project on County Road D. We have Paul Hildestead, did I say that correctly, from Bituminous Roadways, and John Mazzatello from Ramsey County here, so they're the requesters of extended work hours to get this project done. So there's information in your handout. The city of New Brighton has already approved the work on their side. The railroad and MnDOT have also already approved this. So there will be off-ramp closures from 35W onto D during the overnight work, so that the workers don't have people coming off at highway speeds at them in the night. We did publish, in accordance with the ordinance, we did publish a notice in the local paper on September 5th for this public hearing, and residents, owners and residents and businesses within 350 feet of that work in Roseville have received notice of tonight's meeting. That was mailed on September 4th. So I did email you guys a couple of the responses I heard. There was a couple handouts, or there are some handouts coming. So I did hear from 3 residents and 1 commercial business of the roughly 80 notices that we mailed, and all were in support of it to get it done as quick as possible. So the contractor has proposed night work tonight, if we get approval, and starting on the north side. And then on tomorrow night would be overnight work. And then we have proposed early start times on the 17th, 18th, and Monday, which is an hour before start times during the weekday, and also an early start time on Saturday, just to get all the vehicles lined up so that they can pump out as much paving as possible. It's pretty straightforward, but wanted to bring that before you, and they're here too if there's any questions about the specific request.
And one item to note is Friday, they have everything milled already from the west side to Old 8. So where there is houses, we're already done with milling. So the nights would be from Cleveland to Old 8.
All right, good to know. All right, questions from the council, and once again, this is on County Road D.
D. Did I say D?
Yes, you did. I just
Okay.
want to reemphasize that for folks in the audience
Sorry,
or at home,
yes.
that it's County Road D, west of Cleveland, in the city of Arden Hills and Roseville, and I don't know if there's any New Brighton in there too. So, with that, questions from the council. All right, Councilmember Schroeder.
Actually, I would move to.
Well, we have to have the public hearing first.
Oh, sorry.
So we
I'm jumping the
do want to
gun.
do that part
It just
before we
seemed,
take the
especially
action.
since we got the, so many people saying they supported it.
Yep, yep.
So-
No, we do want to officially open the
Okay.
public hearing and
All
provide
right.
for that
We'll hold
opportunity
that
for
thought
comment.
then.
So, all right, be prepared. All right. With that, we'll open the public hearing and we'll offer an opportunity for members of the public who may be here to speak on the requested variance from our noise ordinance to allow some overnight work as well as some earlier in the morning work than what our noise ordinance normally allows on weekdays and weekends for this project. Anyone from the public here this evening to speak on this item? All right, does not appear to be the case. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing then and move to council consideration of the noise variance request. Councilmember Schroeder.
I would move to approve.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Schroeder. I'm going to say seconded by Councilmember Strawn. Sorry, Councilmember Grau. With that, we've got the motion before us. Discussion on the motion to approve that noise variance. Councilmember Schroeder is the maker of the motion.
It's very straightforward, so, no.
All right, Councilmember Strawn.
The comments we received have been positive, and eager to have this done, so.
All right, other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we've got the motion before us. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. That noise variance is granted. And start your engines.
Yes.
All right, with that then, that brings us to our second item under business items this evening, and that is to hold a joint meeting with the Parks and Recreation Commission. Why don't we take just about a 5-minute break to get everybody up to the table and situated, and then we'll convene that joint meeting.
All right, who
Do you
wants
want
to?
to, do you want to be the driver? Do you want me to be the driver? I can be the driver? Okay. Do it.
All right, we're back from a short break to make sure we got all of our Parks and Rec Commission members up at the table who are here this evening to participate in this joint meeting with the council. Can everybody hear in the room? I don't know if the
Lost your audio.
Can we get the PA back? Or the mics are off still, maybe?
It was on when you started.
Yeah.
Ooh. Still off?
Now you're back.
Okay, we want to make sure everyone in the room can hear. Otherwise, at the end of the evening, I have a very sore throat. All right, with that, we'll recognize our chair of the Parks and Rec Commission, Lindsay Mack-Benson, to kick off the discussion of our sort of annual / semi-annual joint meeting with the commission.
All right, thank you, Mayor Rowe and Council. It's really great to be here and see all of you. I want to start off with a round of introductions. I'm Lindsay Mack-Benson. I am the chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission, and we're going to start over here with Commissioner Harris.
JD Harris, and I am new to the commission.
Jamie Penny, and this will be my second year with the commission.
Karen Beckman, and I'm the vice chair of the commission.
Brian Donaldson, this is my first year.
Welcome.
Chad Koistra, this is my second year as well.
And we are missing a few commissioners this evening due to other things happening in the world. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Vice Chair Beckman.
So we thought we would start out tonight with giving you some work highlights of stuff that we covered over the last year and plan on covering in 2026. So first thing that we wanted to highlight is that we reviewed and updated the Natural Resources Plan. And a big part of this is that we also received a substantial grant that was highlighted in the city newsletter of $700,000. Another thing that we have been doing throughout the year is attending various community outreach events, in particular Discover Your Parks. We've had commissioners at every single Discover Your Parks event, one or two at every event. And we've also been very active in the Rose Fest activities going on in the city. We reviewed feedback for the 2025 and 2026 capital improvement plans. So we reviewed and put in a new playground at Lexington. And then we also provided a recommendation to the council on the Rosebrook Park capital improvement, where we're suggesting the removal of the wading pool in favor of a splash pad. And then upcoming, I also should mention that a new scoreboard was put in over at the Oval with help of funds from the Friends of the Oval as well as the Midwest Speed Skating. And then looking forward to next year, we did a park tour at Autumn Grove to kind of discuss ideas for that park. And then also we'll be doing a playground remodel at Sandcastle Park. We also received operational overviews of particularly the recreation programs, and then also some improvements that are happening at Cedar Home.
All right, and I think we're turning this to Commissioner Donaldson, if we remember correctly. I'm gonna scooch the mic over just in case. I know we have the ceiling mics too.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members. We also have been really talking about our goals for the commission, and I think that came from a request of the council, and so we're using a new format that allows the commission to track the progress of our goals and how we're doing, and that's part of your bench handouts that you have today, and all the goals. But we review our goals quarterly, and again, the full goals are in your packet, so you can go over them. If you have any specific questions, we can talk about it. A couple of goals to highlight. First of all, we have some great auxiliary organizations that helps the parks, for the Friends of Roseville Parks, Central Park Foundation, the Oval, Friends of the Oval, and how can we really help those groups to do more, combine together on some things, and just celebrate what they do to really make our parks great, because they're fantastic organizations that we have that help the parks. And then additionally, we really want to provide feedback and support on the Roseville Volunteer Program. We have great volunteers at our parks, from planting flowers to pulling weeds, whatever it is. We have a lot of people who get out there and get their hands dirty or help out in the parks, and we really want to celebrate that. It's a huge asset. We want to find ways to support and grow that. So those are some of our highlighted goals going forward. But if you see any other goals on there that you have questions about, let us know.
All right, Commissioner Penny, let's talk about our tours.
Yes, I'll talk a little bit about earlier this year we had the great opportunity to get out and get out in person and visit 3 specific parks, which is kind of an annual thing. This is really a great thing for this commission to do because we all kind of have a lot of different backgrounds and different sort of ideas of what parks and recreation means. So going to different physical locations and seeing the different ways that you can think of parks and recreation, really valuable. First we visited, I'll just kind of go through the 3 sites quickly. Reservoir Woods, visited several sites in the park, and a big part of that was kind of talking about the convergence of a lot of the recreational usage, such as hiking and biking, and some of the issues that that might lead to, such as erosion with the unofficial trails, and kind of the idea of having our paved trails and then the sort of desired trails. And, how do you encourage people to come out into nature, but also kind of, maintain that nature? And we talked about the possibility of, we didn't really land on anything, but perhaps mountain biking would be something that could be a potential amenity that we don't really currently have a track for that. Reservoir Woods had some possibilities, but there's not without challenges, kind of for the reasons mentioned above. We did review how Reservoir Woods has benefited from the Natural Resource Management Program. Next, we went to Oasis Park. That one, we really looked a lot at the community garden plots, talked about that program and the success that that has been. Also talked about some of the maintenance issues going on with that park building and sort of some of the challenges too with maintaining a lesser used baseball field like we have there. Kind of, is it worth it to maintain? Not, so that was, and then the third one we visited was a very high use park, Autumn Grove. That one really has a high level of use combined with a lot of the sort of weather conditions. There were some pretty poor field conditions that we noted. And we made some possible recommendations that some better irrigation solutions could be pursued in the future. We also talked about potential for the update and relocation of the playground there, and also highlighted a bit of an underutilized currently part on the south portion of that parcel, which is part of that contains that bicycle pump track, which is again a very unique amenity that you don't see everywhere. But we also have that fairly undeveloped field over there, which has some concerns with what's underneath there as far as any potential development. But again, it was a great opportunity for us to get out and kind of get a lot of different ideas going and seeing a lot of different locations.
And something that's on here as well that we will touch on in a little while is we did take a tour of the Aldine right away. A number of the commissioners went out there and walked through the property and everything to help inform the recommendation we'll be making this evening. Moving on to the campus master plan implementation. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to join this commission in the first place as a user of Veterans Park and a dance mom at the Roseville School of Dance. I think those are 2 incredibly important facilities that we have in the city of Roseville. And I just really wanted to say thank you to the council for considering the option for that keeps Veterans Park and does a dance studio and license center building on its own that would be owned by the city. That was really important to a lot of the community that uses those fields. I have a son who plays soccer at Veterans Park this fall, and being able to make that connection with the community when everyone's wondering what's happening there, and to be able to say, this is likely going to stay and here's what's going to be happening, and just seeing the smiles on people's faces and how excited people are that we get to keep the park. And the kids are just excited about that, and seeing them run around and see families see that we're not losing parkland for that. So thank you for having that, looking at that plan of this split maintenance facility. I really appreciate that as a citizen of Roseville, as well as a dance mom and a park user. And speaking of that, Jamie and I are going to tag team the recreation programs a little bit. We're not just commission members, we are also recreation program users a lot through our kids. And we're able to really, one of the best things about this commission is getting to make connections with the community. Things like, being a dance mom, it's having that close connection to the program and being able to advocate for things that the dance program may need, or things that I'm hearing from other parents that they may need to the dance program and the rec program. Other fun things about the connections is just, we get to make connections with the community. My son's kindergarten teacher lives near Oasis Park and wanted to know what was happening over there, and I was able to connect her with Director Johnson so that they could have a conversation and just really be able to make more. I keep saying connections, but that's kind of what it is. That's the
best
beauty
word.
of this it's the beauty of this commission.
It really is. I can kind of chime in a little bit here. So yeah, another role I have outside of this commission is because apparently at one point I realized I didn't have enough, I had too much free time, so I had to do something about that. I am a leader with one of our local Cub Scout packs. My son is in there with about 18 other kids, and in that role, outside of the commission role, I've had a couple of really great experiences this year that I have really sort of informed my role as a commissioner as well. The first was the Martin Luther King Day of Service back in January, where we did sort of a native seating event in the park. And part of Cub Scouting is volunteerism and outdoor, conservation. So I had a pretty good group of my kids come out and participated in that. And the next month in February, we had the pleasure of volunteer coordinator Rachel Boggs gave a presentation to our commission. And I made a comment along the lines of, I brought a bunch of kids. I don't really know if we were all that effective, with their little 10-year-old hands throwing this stuff. And she said something that really changed my perspective, which is to say that these volunteer programs, sometimes it is about really getting the work done, but just as much it's often about kind of providing an enrichment opportunity for those volunteer participants. So it really is almost run like a recreation program in and of itself, and not just a way to get some work done out of people. So that's something that really informed sort of the way that I will approach that conversation with members of the community as far as the volunteer program goes. The second one I'll highlight really quick, so I don't go on and on here, but back to Discover Your Parks, there was one event where I had the Cub Scout pack come and do kind of a station. This was the one at Pioneer Park. The theme of that was Spirit of Adventure. And we really worked very closely, specifically with Maddie Champa on the Parks and Rec staff to kind of integrate it. It wasn't like we were sort of an outside group. We were very much part of the program, the theming. We talked about logistics and what we could and couldn't do, set up a little model campsite. Just had a lot of fun and got a lot of really good feedback about that. And what that informs me as a commissioner is just to talk to members of the public and let them know, this department is kind of open to your participation and your suggestions. And it's not like it's just run and that's just the way it is. Like, feedback and participation is important. So kind of went on and on with that.
Yeah,
but,
that is all right. And the last bit that is kind of an upcoming thing that we're thinking about is the Parks and Recreation System Master Plan. It was adopted initially in 2010, and it probably needs a revamp. So Director Johnson brought it up to us as a commission of, hey, do you think this would be a good idea to look at? And I think we didn't vote on it or anything, but I think the general consensus was, yes, we do think that the Parks and Recreation System Master Plan could use an update, especially since the demographics of Roseville are changing. There's been a lot of development in the city since 2010, and just the way we recreate is changing. And how can we, do things to make it more bikeable and more livable and be that a city that we are the city everybody brags about our parks, and so let's keep it that way, and how we can revamp a master plan to really forward think in that area. And this just on the slide is all of us at Discover Your Parks this summer. It is really one of the best events. My daughter came out to be a junior commissioner at one of them or something. Like, my kids are always there wanting to be junior commissioners and talk about the parks. But it is really just such a great opportunity. We see many of you there at Discover Your Parks as well. I even saw former council member Etten there at one of the Discover Your Parks because he just can't get enough of city events, right? And so it's just a great way to show up, talk to the community, really find out what people are interested in, and then make those connections. So there was somebody talking about a hornet's nest in one of the playgrounds, and I said, you know what? I know the guy who can fix that. And Jim Taylor was over at the Rosebrook Park thing, and he was responsive. He's like, I got somebody on it. They'll be out there in the morning to fix it. I had another situation like that, emailing Jim on the weekend about something of like, hey, I saw this at the park. And he's like, I got you. It's fixed. And it's just really helpful to know somebody and have such a responsive staff to get to work with. And I'm just trying to not make Director Johnson, like, you can't say positive things about, but I mean, the entire Parks and Recreation staff is incredible to work with, and we are so lucky to work with all of them. And I think it's just, a good time to give them their public kudos, because we are so lucky to have such a great group of people to work with. So, is there anything you would like us to look into?
Well, first of all, we do need to agree with you on the staff. The Parks and Recreation staff is amazing. Starts right from the top down through everybody that's involved. You know, even the folks that are out taking care of fields and things like that. I think it's just, you know, as you noted, it's one of the things that really brings people to Roseville and keeps people in Roseville. And so, you know, it doesn't happen just magically without, you know, significant thought, significant planning, significant work, organization, all those things. And that's because of the folks that we have, you know, both on staff as well as our incredible volunteers. And so, you know, it's definitely something where the people make the difference. And actually that includes the commission as well. So we'll throw you guys in there too. So we'll start with that. Questions or feedback from the council? Councilmember Strawn.
Well, thank you. And a special shout out to Lindsay Matt Benson, as we share Lexington Park as our park. It's beautiful. If you've gone there any weekend, the amazing amount of uses that it is, besides just that brand new, beautiful space at the
Playground.
At the playground, but every part of it is being used in a different way. I have an e-bike. I go as many places as I can, and I see a lot of beautiful places and a lot of beautiful playground structures in other cities that just are empty. I don't know that I've ever walked by or driven by Lexington Park and seen it completely empty, no matter the time of day. And so I feel like it, you know, when you go to these, when you're doing these outings and you're looking at how things are being done, it's not just the staff that's eyes are on it, but it's parents and people who live in the neighborhood and see every Saturday, Sunday, who's out there playing soccer and playing volleyball and playing whatever else in the park. My wish list is more bike racks. I always want those, especially at Central Park. There just aren't enough. If there's a way for us to have a city dog park or some kind of place where people can have some space, more community gardens. A lot of people want more community gardens spread around the neighborhood. And now that Councilmember Etton's not is a former, I would love to double stripe the tennis courts at Victoria Central Park so that they also could accommodate pickleball, because it's one of the only places where their houses aren't that close. And then I think just continuing finding ways that bike pedestrian areas can be separated. There's a lot of misconception from people in the public that the trails, bituminous trails, are not intended for bicycles. You get a lot of pushback from people, and so I know I've personally seen some people do some serious number on those white sticks on Hamlin, but I really appreciate as a biker having that little bit of protection, and I think it can do great wonders for families, especially. Had my kids been younger, I always biked on the sidewalk because I really didn't need them to get taken out by a car not paying attention. So I appreciate all the work you do, but I appreciate all the different types of perspectives you bring. And I am so amazed by your dedication. Every Discover Your Parks, there's, you know, more than one of you there, and really giving that ambassadorship that I think we had in mind, bringing it to life. So thank you.
Great. Councilmember Schroeder.
Yes, thank you all for all your hard work. And actually, yes, I do hear from Mr. Etten all the time about different things, and he comments about the parks and what's being done constantly as well. So, I mean, he does appreciate your work still. But a couple of things I wanted to touch on is, you know, I do like the accessibility of the parks for people that don't have the ability to get around well, and I also appreciate some of the inclusive playground equipment, which also the beautiful job that was done at Lexington Park up there, that's amazing. But I wanted to talk about that you had mentioned at the beginning about working with the friends of these different. I think that's really, really a good thing that you guys could be working on, because I see some of the things that they have done in the past for us, and I mean, our parks and everything are amazing, and then you put that on it, they become incredible. And so to figure out ways to work that resource, I think that's a really good idea on that. And I'm just really impressed with, the parks, and you're right, this is what people talk about. When you ask people, what do you love about Roseville, and almost most of the time, they start with the parks. And so, yes, making sure that they stay, in good condition and that we reinvest in them, and that's the volunteers and these groups and everything else. And I wanted to mention that volunteer thing. I am so impressed with the volunteers in our community, that they too can add a whole nother level. I mean, if you even just think about all the flowers being planted on Lexington and some of these things, I think a lot of people don't realize that's all volunteers. And so, so being able to access and utilize some of these beautiful resources we have, I think is wonderful, especially if you're working on, as you say, making those connections, bringing all those pieces together. I think that's really important to me, and I thank you for bringing that up.
Other thoughts? Councilmember Groff?
Well, thank you for all your work. Obviously, it's a commitment when you join a commission, and I know that I've seen many of you at the different events, distributing flyers about upcoming events and things like that, and it makes a difference. When everyone's talking about the parks in Roseville, from my job, as I had clients that moved out of Roseville into another suburb, a couple suburbs away. 2 years later, they called me and they said, Wayne, we have to get back to Roseville. The parks just do not measure up. So they came back and their kids were involved in the park system. So it really affects people's daily lives with what you're doing and what the parks do in Roseville. I think as Councilmember Schroeder was saying about the other groups, I think that's, 4 parks are a great resource. I think working together with them and for Roseville, the Friends of Roseville, all of those things are really helpful, and I think that's a good thing for you to point out. And lastly, my last point is, you are the eyes and ears that we need to the community. We do try to go to many things ourselves, but you can't hear from everyone. So when you're hearing things and getting that back to Director Johnson or even to one of us, that's all really, really helpful work. So I just want to express my appreciation for that.
All right. Other thoughts, feedback? Councilmember Bauer?
Left with the bottom of the bucket here. I echo everything my fellow council members said. Thank you all for your work. What I'll just add is, if you notice on your agendas, there's always a option for commissioner initiated items. And I do encourage you, as well as other commissions, to do that. If there's something that you wish to discuss or bring up, do that. You don't necessarily have to have staff come up with what it is that you're talking about. So I just want to empower you with that. That was the whole idea. I believe that's an Eton thing as well, amongst others. To do that is so we can have that, pointing out what Councilmember Groff was stating. If you hear something, maybe that's something for you to have a discussion. And kind of to see that, 2 things you may want to look at. Well, first, as you're discussing some of these things, we've been talking about biking. You also have the opportunity to work with other commissions as well, and you can work through staff to make that happen. It has to be posted and whatnot, but there might be some overlap, or you want to hear what they're doing. That sharing information, it's easy to get siloed in some of these things, but some of the work that you're doing may be complementary to some other commissions. It's always nice to also hear what the others are doing, and so point that out. And then also, after public safety, your budget is the largest that comes. So if something you may want to discuss, if you want to have more insight into what's going on there, it's another thing you might be able to discuss. We're going through the budget process right now. It's a lot for us to go through, and something you may want to consider also. If there's changes or things, you can also recommend those. Thank you for all your work.
All right. I just have a couple things. One is, I didn't realize it was 2010 that we did the last update to the system plan.
Yeah.
However, now that I think about it, that's exactly right. Because I was on the steering committee, as I seem to recall. So I think that's definitely something important that we take a look at as a community. I think all the reasons that you stated are absolutely true. Changing demographics, changing the way people recreate, what people are looking for in terms of facilities, all that's important. Because really we need to be informed in our decision making, especially about our capital needs in the park and recreation system. We can't be planning for certain types of fields that nobody's going to be using and that sort of thing. We want to make sure that we're using the valuable resource of the taxpayers' dollars and those who pay for recreation fees towards what really benefits people in the community and is current. So that's important. Just along the lines of what Councilmember Strawn said in regards to the activeness of our parks, just a very quick anecdote. I went out with staff to do the filming of the State of the City earlier this summer, and we decided one of our stops would be at Sunset Park, our newest park, or one of our newest parks out in the western part of the community. And this was probably at 9 and 10 in the morning on a Friday weekday. And as we pulled up to the park and got all the camera stuff ready, and I was doing my hair and makeup, we had the kids in the neighborhood just started showing up and started playing on the playground and shooting baskets in the basketball hoop and things like that. And it provided an excellent backdrop for the State of the City comments that happened to be made at that time. But it was just really, it brought home the fact that these parks are active at all times. And I think in a neighborhood where there was a lot of question, I think, as to the use of the park, the value of the park, and all of that, it was just really validation as to all that decision making, in which the commission itself was involved. And maybe not all of you individually, given your tenure, but the commission had a lot to say about the choice as to whether to do dollars or land as park dedication for the development that took place there. And the decision was made, which was, I think, maybe the first and only time, or maybe the second and only time of two, that in all the time I've been on the council, we took land instead of cash, or not a combination. So, and I think it just paid off tremendously for the community. So I wanted to point that out specifically. And then finally, all this talk about everything that the commission does and how much fun it is on the commission. It's hard to believe that you guys have all this fun doing all this work when the Public Works, Environment, and Transportation Commission has stated that they are the fun commission. So not to try to create some rivalry there, but you may want to have a talk with them about that.
Down the gauntlet.
So, but once again, just echoing all the thanks and appreciation for all the work that you folks do in the decision making and guiding both recreation as well as our parks and our facilities. So is that enough feedback? Does that help you at all in your deliberations and hopefully in your egos? All right.
All right, we have one more thing to talk to you about tonight, and tonight we are just providing a recommendation. We are not asking for anything. I don't think there's any action happening. A couple months ago, you all sent over the Aldine right-of-way to the Parks and Recreation. Wow, it's hard to talk now. The Parks and Recreation Commission to talk about would this area be valuable as parks or recreation space? We talked about it at 2 meetings, both August and September, and at both of those meetings there was a significant amount of public feedback from residents, both property owners who line the area as well as folks in the neighborhood. We took a site tour. This was like the first day of the state fair. It was like the first or second day of the state fair, and so we were anticipating parking nightmares, and it actually was super calm in the neighborhood, and we were able to walk through, look at the trees, look at the tree tags. With Jim Taylor was there, Carrie Anderson was there, Director Johnson was there, and really get a sense with some of the residents as well about and seeing what it really is, because you can't really understand it until you're actually there walking through and getting burrs on your clothes from all of the invasives. There was a tree inventory done. We received the topographical survey. And so the commission reviewed relevant information from that 2010 Parks and Recreation System Master Plan, the site conditions, the tree preservation information, as well as we talked about accessibility standards, because that was a really big concern. Trees and accessibility were the two really big things, as well as kind of noise that were brought up by residents. So we discussed at our last meeting 2 pieces of information, and we held 2 different votes. One was that the Parks and Recreation Commission acknowledges that that piece of land that is the Aldine right-of-way has value for the Parks and Recreation system. The second thing that we voted on was that the Parks and Recreation Commission recommends that the City Council direct staff as expeditiously as possible engage with a third party to conduct a detailed study of a non-traditional path. So not a bituminous pathway, anything like that, but that includes pathway alignment options for accessibility and tree preservation, and those specific tree impacts, and that a final decision be made immediately following receipt of the study. We're happy to answer questions about that too, if you would like to ask us questions.
All right, well, thank you first of all for your deliberation on this and taking that request from the council and really doing what I think we all expected you would do is a good job of working through the information and thinking about it and having discussions. Questions from the council? All right. Once again, we are receiving the recommendation this evening. This will be back before the city council. I don't know if we've, Mr. Trudgeon, scheduled the particular meeting for it, but I want to make sure I don't misspeak in that regard.
No, we have not. I would expect it to be one of the October meetings.
One of the October meetings? Okay, all right. So we'll take this under advisement. I think that, once again, we're not taking any action this evening on the recommendation. I think that we want to make sure and be contemplative about it and make sure that we've got the information we need to have. And so we do appreciate having all the information provided from the commission on its deliberations, including the minutes and the other information and the recommendations. So we'll be taking that under advisement and considering it once again probably at one of our October meetings. And we'll certainly keep everybody, including the commissioners as well as the neighborhood and interested parties, aware of when that will be happening because we will be certain to have some feedback during that process and would expect no less. And so we'll look forward to that opportunity. And once again, thank you for this extra work that we gave you and doing a good job with that. I think it helps us in our decision-making process. Is there anything else from the commission on this item particularly that you wanted to highlight or point out from your?
All the work that the staff did to prepare us and provide information and respond to our specific questions. They really worked quickly and were very thorough. So I just wanted to appreciate Matt and his department for that.
Right. If there's nothing else then on the joint meeting, we appreciate this opportunity to visit with you and thank you. And you certainly are welcome to stay for the rest of the council meeting at your option. We've got a couple of more business items to take up. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And it is our 8 o'clock break time, so why don't we do our normal 5-minute 8 o'clock break.
Yes.
All right, we're back from a short break, and we've got more excitement and fun on our agenda this evening. I should say, with our other fun commission, the Finance Commission is here this evening to make some recommendations related to our 2026 budget and tax levy after having considered, as the council is considering the city manager's recommendation that he made in August. And so with that, I'll turn it over to the members of the commission who are here this evening to introduce themselves and then talk about their recommendations. Welcome.
Well, after listening to the Park and Rec, we decided that the Finance Commission needs to have more fun too, so.
So what are you doing here?
Sure. Anyway, we're here making a recommendation. So I'm blessed to work with a real talented team here. Commissioners Ray Konzenbach and Commissioner Anna Berbor have been just tremendous people to work with, along with Kevin Davey, made some great suggestions at our last budget meeting. Siafa Barclay, we have a new student on our commissioner, Aldo Berquist, and one of our commissioners is on medical leave, so. And Vice Chair Sadiq Dahir. We're here to give you a little background on some of the discussion that we had and how we came to the recommendations that we're going to present to you. So I'd like to step through this bench handout number 1 with you. It'll take maybe 5 or 10 minutes to step through that. Then we can open up for questions and dialogue after that. So the Finance Commission started by looking at the franchise fees. And there are a lot of pros and cons, as you well know. So pros included, most cities already use this as a source of revenue. That was a big pro. Franchise fees would apply to exempt properties. That would allow them to help share in the cost of city government. We like that. Franchise fees might help us to avoid the use of pilots, payment in lieu of taxes. That has the potential to be arbitrary, potential to be inconsistent, and certainly the potential to add up an administrative management burden. Cons, franchise fees are a tax, a regressive tax, and a non-deductible tax. That also is a biggie. We could be criticized for being sneaky for disguising this tax. And we at the Finance Commission meeting actually got some of that input. It dilutes or reduces the Minnesota property tax credits for many homeowners or renters. And at the federal level, we have a new state and local tax deduction that has increased from $10,000 to $40,000, which would mean more people will be able to itemize their deductions. So in the end, the Finance Commission, after discussion, agreed that we would recommend that the franchise fees not be considered as a source of income or source of revenue for budgeting purposes. We then moved on to staffing. The staffing requests are for police and fire are significant factors in the 26 budget and beyond in a big way. So 7 new FTEs are requested for police, adding to a current force of 71. 15 new FTEs are requested for fire, adding to a force of 29. Grant requests have been submitted to provide some offset to the cost of these. But regardless of the outcome of the grant request, both chiefs have advised that they intend to proceed with all of the new staff positions, regardless of the outcome of the grant request. So again, more background and research that we did, knowing that this is going to be a real big part, a big increase in the budget. I spent a lot of time reading and reviewing documents, including the police request for council action dated July 7th, the fire RCA dated January 27th, the Axtell report, did ride-alongs with the police and fire department, had in-person meetings and operational briefings by the police chief, Scheider, and the assistant police chief, Adams, in-person meetings and operational briefings by the assistant fire chief, Neil Shostrom, battalion chief, Cody Thornburg, And I have to say thank you to both police chief and fire chief for kind of a lengthy dialogue and entertaining a lot of questions that I had regarding the budgets. Really appreciated that. That's very helpful. So clearly our call volume has grown, and that's the basis for the request for staffing. But we also need to be clear, and I want you to know that the city has responded with staff additions over the past 5 years to attempt to meet the growing call volume. So for example, police serious offenses, the 5-year increase has been 16%. Police calls for service over 5 years, that increase has been 14%. Traffic citations over 5 years, 94% increase. And the 5-year increase in police FTEs has been 24%. Fire incidents, the 5-year increase has been 36%. Fire inspections, 5-year increase, 3%. 5-year increase in fire FTEs has been 34%. We have a pretty good handle on the calls and incidents. It's been harder to get information about FTEs. And so just know that that's an imperfect count, but we did our best to understand the growth of FTEs. So as the commission discussed this matter, we asked ourselves questions such as, what minimum number of fire additions would it take to move us from 3 to 4 staffed response units? That's, I think, probably where we are weakest in terms of the comps that with other cities that we've deemed to be comparables. We're way on the low end with 3 response units. At that point, the commission decided that questions such as that are really better answered by city staff and the city manager. The Finance Commission then proceeded to make a recommendation with respect to a levy target. We acknowledge the growing public safety need, and we recommend a levy increase not to exceed 10%. So I'll stop there, open for dialogue, questions, additions.
Anything else from the commissioners to fill in details on that? Right.
I think one of the things that where our advice might be where most expertise or whatever has to do with the franchise fees. And we discussed that a lot as to whether that made sense or not. That's kind of more in our bailiwick than how many more police or fire. That's the trade-off you guys have. There's how much more of that service do you want and how much more levy goes with it. That's the political decision. But if you want, we'd be happy to talk in more detail on why we want to decide against the franchise fee if you so desire.
Questions or ideas or thoughts from the council? Councilmember Strahan?
Thank you. I guess my questions probably are more about that second part that you're maybe saying you don't feel as comfortable. Because I was wondering if you had assessed the FTE equivalent on our current overtime outlay for the public safety department. So when you look at what we currently are paying for overtime for police and fire, because that really should be, I know that overtime is expected to cover the cost of quite a few of these full-time staff that we're thinking of replacing. So is that something that you considered in your analysis?
No, it was not,
Okay.
and that's a very good point.
Because really, then you're talking...
An expensive part.
Yeah, and you're talking a person and a half for each hour of, for each hour of overtime. You're looking at another piece that I know was addressed extensively in the Excel report was indicating the impact of the upcoming Paid Family Medical Leave Act, which is a state law that's going into effect on the 1st of January, which will allow up to 20 weeks of paid leave paid by the state of Minnesota for our staff. And I've had extensive discussions. We have a very young childbearing age public safety department. And even if they're not the child bearer, they are allowed bonding time with so we expect there'll be a lot more time of replacement time on those staff. And so that is another really important component that we add when we look at just an FTE. An FTE is saying that that person is in the building doing their job every single day. But the reality is if they're granted up to 20 weeks paid leave to be off to care for a new child, an adopted child, some injury, they can't be on the job and someone has to replace them. So part of that overage is covering for that overtime, and part of that overage is covering for that additional time those folks are away from the position. Sure. So in addition to adding to staffing an additional unit, one other piece I asked about was the possibility, and I had asked this question as well, was about going from 12-hour shifts in the rotation that it is currently to 8-hour shifts. A lot of young family employees with young families, they get like 6 days of paid time off per year. So if you want to go, because of the 12-hour shifts, and so if you want to go to the child event, you have to take one of your precious few days off. So I think it's really important that I do believe in the questioning that I did of the Excel group after receiving their report. They had taken a really thorough review of this staffing component and adjusting to this work-life balance. And so I, having been all public safety folks themselves, I felt like we were kind of at a meeting of the minds and understanding of that. So I get it. The bottom line is one thing, but I also want to make sure we take the human component in this and we talk about these are people's lives and we want to have some longevity to what they do and we want to be a good employer to them. And we have to. We're mandated by law to allow them to have some of this time. So I think you really have to look at, and I think it helps to say, maybe that's not your bailiwick, but to understand that it was someone else's who recently reviewed this and that was part of why they made the recommendation the way they did, because it's not like the old days, you get 2 weeks of vacation a year and you cover that by somebody else. If you're saying you're going to lose maybe 5-6 people a year or more to up to 20 weeks of paid time away, you suddenly have a very different impact on your FTEs for your whole organization.
Other questions or thoughts, Councilmember Schroeder?
So I'll focus on the area you guys said you're experts in, so on the franchise fee side of things. You talked about dilutes or reduces the property tax credit. Did you, looking at that, so I guess I'm kind of wondering the actual impact of that. So say if the residents pay, say, $10 a month on the franchise fee, so $120 a year, how much does that affect their actual credit that they would get? So I'm wondering how big of a deal it is from that aspect, because then I think looking at, and of course there's always the balance between, do you end up paying more in property taxes or do you pay, and that was one of the things I know the mayor and the city manager were working on some spreadsheets on figuring out, if you did that instead of going to property taxes, how much is cash flow then involved too with a residence? So is it more, so you have that, how much you actually pay in property taxes, and then how much would you get reduced in the franchise if you had a franchise fee with your deduction versus actual cash flow out if it was all in property taxes? So it's I was just curious if you'd looked, how much detail of that you looked into.
I mean, when you look at each person, the dollars they're not big, but the principle of the matter does apply.
Mm-hmm.
The franchise fee is a de facto tax, but it's not a legal tax. So on the programs, like state programs that can give relief to tax relief, franchise fees aren't part of that.
Right.
We're on revenue. And the same thing as Bruce said, on the at the federal level, where we were limited, the state and local tax deduction, the SALT deduction, had been reduced to $10,000. Now it's back to $40,000, up to $40,000. So presumably more people will be itemizing, and they can, that'll help there on their federal tax by deducting, but that's only on the property tax, not on the franchise fee. And it is regressive in that it's X number of dollars, per connection, per household, or as opposed to things that are a bit more graduated in that if you got a more expensive house, pay more property taxes. So it's mildly regressive, as well as less efficient for the taxpayer if they can take advantage of some either state or federal deduction. That would be that's the problem. Those are the problems with it. Does that answer your question?
Well, it does, but it's not a big amount that would reduce their deduction. And then did you look at that when you look at these franchise fees, that actually it's not just how many percentage of the household they'll pay that percentage of the revenue. So for example, if a commercial property, for example, may end up paying more in a franchise fees than a residential. So then if a residential is, say, 90% of our connections, but they may end up only paying, say, 60% of the actual fee total. So, I'm not saying one way or the other. I was just kind of curious if you looked at the different configurations that way, too.
It's hard to make a huge case out of any individual
Right.
renter, for example, but the principle does apply, that they'd be looking at a non-deductible tax, whereas they would have possibly some benefit on the renter's credit through the state.
We did not receive data as to exactly how that would be, or how much is on tax exempt properties that would pay, but there aren't a lot of properties, that much we know.
Right.
So we don't have a lot of hard numbers on that. They were not available to us.
Okay, so it was more of the principle that you're looking at it than the actual numbers.
Principle and the general logic.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, Councilor Bauer?
I want to step back a little bit. Just the whole process. I was just curious, as you've gone through and come to your recommendation that you brought forward today, which thank you for. Did you find the budget process that we have, areas of it lacking, or things that we could change to make it more beneficial to help you come to a decision? I'm curious about the process, if we need to make adjustments, or if there's more data or something else to make you. I watched your full meeting that you did, and it was a wonderful meeting. There's such good participation from everyone, but I did notice that you were struggling in some areas because of lack of the data and information. So I'm curious if you haven't thought about that, I would encourage you to discuss that at a future meeting, because I'd be very interested, and maybe other members of the council be, if there's some opportunities to make this process work a little bit more efficiently for you to be more comfortable with the recommendation.
Examples of that, struggles with trying to get FTE counts. Other examples included some of the information that was reported in the ACFR. We had questions about, and so I think where that leads us on both of those is to do a more careful job in the coming year to make sure that our data is.
But I would say on the general, that was on something that we hadn't done before in the franchise fee. So, there wasn't really a process for that. I would say, and this is my first time on the commission, but as far as the budget stuff, there was a lot of detail, So that seems to be pretty locked down.
And we were concerned going into this budget year. We knew that there were from the taxpayer's perspective, there were going to be a lot of things that they would be looking at: a new sales tax, potential for a hefty increase in the levy, and a new franchise fee. So we were concerned about that whole package coming together and creating an issue that would make homeowners and renters and business owners uncomfortable.
And I would say, our recommendation was 10%, but there wasn't any science to that. It was we're on the decimal system. I mean, it just seemed like a lot if you're asking for more than that, but there wasn't a scientific, I think the key thing is we said, if you want more staffing for these things and therefore a higher level levy, that's your call. What can the citizens tolerate or what do they want? And that's a judgment call. It doesn't have a right or wrong answer to it. So we're basically
You're not making our decision for
given
us.
it
Extremely disappointed.
So that 10% was just, it was basically, I think we were saying, boy, some of that's 13, 14%, that's an awful lot. That's probably more than people can stomach. That was about the extent of that kind of analysis.
So once we pass this budget, we've now started receiving the quarterly reports. Those are aggregated reports, and funds are, not, here we saw earlier today, the EDA, right, where we had each individual fund and its cash balance and whatnot. I know the reports that you're receiving to make sure that we're operating well and we're following the budget are aggregated. I'd be curious to know, you don't have to answer it now, but that would be something I'd be interested in you to discuss to see if you want that report changed somehow to actually list out each individual fund or something, make sure that you're getting the information that you need to feel comfortable that we're running and managing our funds appropriately. So maybe in a future discussion for you to discuss amongst yourselves to see if that report is sufficient for what you want it to do.
At your request, we received, I've not been in receipt of interim financial reports. I think that's a natural thing that this commission ought to see from time to time.
Yeah.
Maybe quarterly, maybe semi-annually.
Yeah, and I would encourage you, if that's something that you want to, one of those council-initiated or commission-initiated items, to discuss that amongst yourselves and request that. And then my final question is, in this budget, we look at our CIP and we look at our CIP 20 years out. I'm curious to know if that's beneficial at all. I bring this up because in that CIP, we don't have any sense of inflation in there. If you look at the numbers, there are lots of copy and paste. It seems to be like an exercise. Curious, again, not an answer here, but I'd be curious for you guys to, I guess, if that was a factor in your discussion and looking at the budget, and if it makes sense to reduce that from 20 to 10 because, or something else, because I know for me personally, beyond 10 years, it's just, unless they factor in a bunch of inflation and other costs, it's just a silly number. It's not even close to reality.
Agreed. Other organizations that I work with, we have inflators on the 10, 20-year look aheads.
Right, I think Councilmember Strawn, you had your hand.
I guess a couple things that came to mind. I don't know if this was something in your assessment. One, just looking at FTEs doesn't tell you a lot. I oversee 400 and some employees on a daily basis. That's just for FTEs doesn't really mean FTEs, the person who's a receptionist on call versus the person who's in charge. That doesn't really probably tell you enough. There's a lot of nuance to that. So if you're just looking for a number, probably there's a lot of different pieces to it. So unless you are really going to educate yourself on staffing and compensation, I don't know that getting a number is probably going to it doesn't plug and play. Everybody gets paid different. They have different scales. They have different rates. So I get that it might be frustrating. I would think that maybe Mr. Trudgeon would be your best resource on some of that information. But again, it's not just everybody makes this much money and you just interchange them. As you know, the request was to add some higher level captains and things like that have some more, take some of the responsibility off of the even higher level people. And so, again, these reports which we've received throughout the year kind of explain a lot of that. But so I'm not sure what the intention was of, I needed more FTEs. Just know that that's just not a fixed number and a fixed thing. And then I think I am not an accountant, so I'm not the person to address this. But as you're talking about, this can't be deducted. How many of our people in our city don't make enough money to even itemize deductions? So how many people in our city are going to, they can itemize this if we're talking a franchise fee that's like $3 a month, it's $36 a year. It's not going to be enough to put them into an itemized deduction category when they need $15,000 or whatever to even itemize. And so I think make sure we understand who we're talking about here. It's not going to, the average person, I can guarantee you, doesn't change their ability to itemize versus not itemize. And maybe there are some, but I'd say our renters and people in most of our properties here, that's just not going to be it's not going to be the tipping point for them on that. So I get it that it maybe feels sneaky, but it also captures a different population. And I know that Councilmember Schroeder has gone to multiple, each time that she's been on the council, she's gone to the League of Minnesota Cities. And this is not some harebrained idea. This is something that other people in other cities are saying works. This has been something that she's really pushed for us to investigate because it's something that pretty much every other city in this area is utilizing. And so I've often said if Councilmember Schroeder is reviewed it financially, I'm probably going to be okay with it because that's not my forte. But I don't want it to be dismissed out of hand because knowing, like I said, that threshold, a lot of our people aren't just hovering on that $36 difference between being able to itemize and not being able to itemize for their taxes. And I'm not saying that we should try to sneak people in, but if there's an opportunity to get payment from some entities that would not normally be paying us, then we need to be creative so it's not all being taxed in the same way.
Well, and I do want to note that that this is a opportunity to receive a recommendation, and that certainly the council will have the discussion amongst us and the debate about what to do with the recommendation and why. I think that's important as well for the public as well as the commission to understand our thought process here. So I want to make sure we use our time wisely this evening to focus on the recommendation and if we have questions about that. So if we can refocus a little bit in that regard, Councilmember Bauer, I think I saw your hand up.
Yeah. Just a quick point on that. For the ask from police and fire, they did assign a dollar amount for each FTE, correct? In their budget to come up with their budget amount?
Yes.
Okay. So we did actually assign a dollar amount to an FTE.
Yes.
So thank you.
Right. And I just, this is in regard to the deductibility. I think the challenge we do have is understanding that, whether you pay $1,500 in property tax or $1,570 in property tax, what does that translate to on your tax bill? And of course, every taxpayer is going to be different because they have different income levels, they're in different tax brackets, et cetera. They have, obviously different other deductions. But I think to Councilmember Schroeder's point, I think, and perhaps Councilmember Strawn as well, the relative impact of even a $6 a month, which would be electric and gas under the proposal that's been put forward, on that ultimate tax bill on the federal income tax, I just need to understand that better. I don't want to overweight that in my consideration. And I'm not expecting you to have the answer for me on that. I just wanted to put that out there as information I'm trying to put together as we look at this. So there's a lot of factors that enter into it. And I think we're going to probably have some requests for Mr. Trudgeon coming out of this for information to help us with our consideration as we go forward. But I just wanted to put that little thought and perspective in there from that, just as to how I'm trying to think about those factors. Anything else from the council in terms of questions to the commission about background behind the recommendation or discussion or deliberations that underwent? Councilmember Schroeder?
Just to what the mayor was talking about, trying to seek to understand the actual impact of these things, because I understand the philosophy, because you didn't have some information to look at the numbers. And so, and like I said, having the idea of, is it $36 or $100, how much difference would that make to someone? But also, again, looking at, understanding the impact of, say, if you have commercial is paying a higher amount than the residential, then the commercial ends up paying more of it than a residential. And then the thing is, if it is only $36 a year, it's a very stagnant amount. So with property taxes, if you put it all in there, then that that can go up and down a bigger swing than that. So it's just more in seeking to understand some of these financial, actual, getting into the weeds, as they say. And so, and I think what Councilmember Bauer was saying, making sure we get the data that you need to possibly look at some of this as well. And I know different people are working on that. So I would say that, again, we're seeking to still understand how some of that works. And I'm hoping any information we get about that, that we can make sure that you also have it, so you get an opportunity to see if that makes any difference, where your recommendations are.
One, I think, wrapping up the council discussion here, Councilmember
Yeah, one
Bauer.
final question. I forgot to ask previously, so apologize for that. But when you were looking at the budget, did you receive anything as far as possible cuts that might be opportunities to save cost or reduce cost or changes in services? And if so, would that have factored in your decision, or is that something you would like going forward as part of your decision-making process?
There was one table of some cuts that were made.
The budgets they gave us by department had, and in some detail, the increases and the decreases, and there was a lot of line items. Obviously, there were more increases than decreases, but they spelled those out. So, we're not experts in every department. We asked a bunch of questions, and I would say a consensus, we didn't see anything that was at all unreasonable. It all, we can't fully evaluate it, but anything that looked a little odd, we asked about, and got very reasonable answers. Right? The levy's going to go up a lot if you're going to add, FTEs in some areas, and you're not going to increase the levy enough, or the levy and the franchise fee enough, then have to cut somewhere else. Where is that? We don't have a suggestion on that.
Yeah, nor would we expect you to come up with that. No, we're curious.
They're just, but I mean, they did spell out, increase by line items. So in the Parks and Rec probably had, 20 line items, and most of them had increases, several had some decreases with usually a little description on it. So there was a lot of information, on that. Franchise fee, there's not so much information because we haven't been doing it. So we've asked for some of that stuff. How much of that would be the tax exempt properties? And he said, well, we're working on it. They haven't come up with, other than it's not a lot of properties. So there may be additional data. Earlier you talked about the EDA, the $100,000. We had a consensus that made a lot of sense. So you did ask if the Finance Commission had looked at it. Wasn't much discussion. That makes sense.
Great. Councilmember Graham?
I just want to say a couple things. First of all, thank you for looking at it, because this is many things were factored in here, and you have one perspective that I do appreciate you coming forward with it. There will be other things that we have to all discuss as a council, and obviously the end is the council has to decide this. But I just wanted to say I do appreciate your perspective, and I appreciate your input.
Right. There was one more thing I was going to mention, but I've lost my train of thought now. So on the subject of reductions in the budget, so I did add up all the line items, at least on the reduction side, because that was a question somebody had asked. And I think it aggregated to something around $2 million order of magnitude, and about 1.6 or so was some capital reductions. But there was a good 350, 360 of operating cost reductions that were incorporated. And now obviously there were, that those sort of get swamped over by cost of living increases, step increases, even if you didn't make any changes to the staff. And then on top of that were the discussions about the additional fire and police employees. And so, that's how we got to where we are. But it was interesting, and I appreciate very much that this has been a part of our budget process for a few years now, is the itemization of the pluses and minuses, because that hopefully helps us as well as the public, as well as you as our guardians of the finances of the city to be able to see and understand that. So to the extent that that's, might be able to be adjusted or improved, we'd be glad to hear from you on that.
I'd hope we can improve. Yeah. $300,000 on a $32 million tax supported base, like 1%. think we could probably do better than 1%.
Well, and just to that point, I mean, I think that having done this for nearly 20 years now, you know, I've definitely felt that virtually every budget we've passed has been, you know, pretty much, you know, no improvements to operations, no adding extra things other than very specific things that we specifically were looking at in given years, whether it was the staffing up to do 3 responses, and now we're looking at the 4, you know, whether it was other targeted spending. So I don't think that the city of Roseville is and constantly we're talking about our staffing levels and the workloads of staff, and I think that was evidenced in the report from Axtell Group in the police department, how we're doing incredibly amazing things with pretty lean staffing in the city, and really as a service entity, staffing is our big cost. And so, you know, if we're going to be cutting costs, it's going to be cutting staffing, and then the question is, what kind of service levels are we going to get? So that's my little 5-minute excessive pushback on, you know, cost cutting and how much we can really get from that at this point, in given the history of our operations and where we're at. That doesn't mean we constantly don't look at improvements, and we see that in efficiencies and things like that. But the reality is that we're not going to have some miraculous budget, I think, that zeroes out our increase for our taxpayers and keeps everything where people are at now. So, you know, we should make sure we set ourselves a reasonable bar here in this regard. I just wanted to put that out there.
We agree on that.
Anything else from the commission or things you want to know from us, or questions you have in regard to what we've discussed this evening? Or do you need some time to process too?
Well, there's a lot to process. I mean, just individual examples. If we, for example, Councilmember Strand mentioned that overtime. That would be a great one to, if we can reduce overtime, that would be a premium savings if it's replaced with new staff. Save the premium dollars. I mean, that's just one example.
Sure.
Right. Similar to that, you had mentioned, Councilmember Serhan, how the new family law comes into effect in 2026. So can we phase in those FTE? Because wasn't it September or something when we were going to begin? So maybe that is an option to, you know, keep the budget.
If you get additional data on some of this stuff that we don't currently have and you want us to look at it, I think we'd be willing to look at it. What do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I did want to point, so we do get the quarterly financial reports, and I think that's an item in the council packet, and there may be a process whereby, depending on how that's all put together and the timing of everything, that there can be either a pre-review by the commission, or at least simultaneously receiving that information if you're not currently receiving it, because it's being done. So we can just make sure that you're in the loop on some of those things too.
I mean, that's been a real blind spot up until this point.
Sure. All right. Very good. Well, keep letting us know if there's things you need or that can help you with your deliberations, and we appreciate your effort and time on you know, looking at each year what the city manager recommends and providing a recommendation to us. You know, in past years it may not have been as challenging or difficult for you because we didn't throw a franchise fee approach at you, but we know you're up to the task.
Well, there's a lot going on this year.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Very much appreciate all you guys do, very much.
Yep. All right. And once again, I was just going to check, Mr. Trudgeon, I think you had asked if there was anything that the council may want to get information on for our deliberations next week on the not to exceed. And I was going to put out there that, and hopefully this is something that the council can agree on. So certainly, just as a baseline, all of the prior scenarios are still on the table for our consideration, in addition to the recommendation from the Finance Commission. My thought was to throw an additional item in there to get information on, which would be the same impact to the property owner as the recommendation of the Finance Commission, but still consider looking at, as an alternate to that, you know, including in that amount the $6 franchise fees for the residential and what that gets us and how that affects our ability to fund some of the public safety positions and things like that. So does that make sense from the council's perspective as one more thing to look at? And hopefully we don't have 10 more things, but maybe one more thing.
So you're suggesting locking at roughly 10% and then at
So it would be the same dollar amount as the 10%, which was, I think, $13 a month or something, $13.40 or something like that, and just include within that the franchise fee, because we do raise some more revenue from that, which can apply to fund capital and maybe free up some existing levy capacity or remaining levy capacity for some of our other operating costs. So
Just to be clear, sir, I think we're on the same page as we discussed earlier, but that the total impact of the levy and the franchise fees would not exceed that 10% total.
would not exceed the same dollar amount.
Same dollar amount.
on the average
yeah.
property.
So it would become, levy plus franchise fees equal this
Right.
amount.
So and if in fact the number was 1344, the impact would be 1344 inclusive of $12 of franchise, or $6 of franchise fees.
Yes. that includes that, yeah.
All right.
So that's a scenario we can run.
Yeah.
All right.
Is there anything else that you would like? So I mean, you all know this, but just say it out loud. What we need to do is not to exceed. So there are some decisions that we can't make yet, including the franchise fees. We have to go through a process to implement that. We have to look at it that this is the not to exceed, even though that's maybe not the number we're going to land on, and we have a lot of unanswered questions. I think we all do, including the grant dollars. We won't know until mid-October at the earliest on that. So, a little bit blind as far as what we're going to end up with, but we want to make sure we give enough ability for us to be reactive to those changing events. So maybe keep that in mind as well. Ultimately, we have to pass resolutions with numbers in them, and while we can quickly calculate those based on the scenarios, or if we go off script, if there's some things that you just want to eliminate right now and not have us be prepared for, that's perfectly fine. Maybe you're not prepared to have that discussion tonight, but just want to open that up in case there's any things that we know we don't want to be doing.
I don't know if we want to eliminate anything right now at this point in time.
Okay, that's fair.
All right. Thank you again, and thanks to the commissioners once again for the input. Stay tuned as always. All right, that brings us then to our last business item this evening, and that is to consider selecting an architect or architectural services provider for the Civic Campus project. And I believe our Public Works Director, Jesse Freihammer, is going to introduce this item for our consideration this evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Going to go through a real brief presentation just to get everyone up to speed on kind of process and how we went through the recommended selection. So little background, on July 7th, Council approved moving forward with Concept C. At the July 21st meeting, Council approved the RFP for architect services as well as the construction manager at risk. We did release that a couple days later, and then we did have proposals due on August 27th. The scoring matrix, which was in the proposal, included 6 items of, quality of the consultant's proposal, qualifications of the lead architect firm, other various components, as well as cost, which was the largest component. So that's what the consultants were scored on. So when we did get back proposals, one of the processes was they did have to give us a notice of intent. We originally received 10 of those. Of those, only 7 of them did submit an actual proposal. So those were Meyer Group, HCM, BKV, LHB, Wold Architects, Codet Architects, and Bush Architects. Based on that, staff scored the RFPs using the matrix on the previous slide. The city manager, myself, the Parks and Recreation Director, the city engineer, the park superintendent, and the city planner were a part of that review committee. In the packet we did include, but kind of a summary of the scoring from that review process was done. The top 3 firms were BKV, LHB, and HCM. Also included in the packet was just kind of a brief breakout of costs and hours associated with it, as well as an alternate. The alternate was for some additional costs to do an increase in sustainability design, similar to a B3, which a lot of the state does. So there's obviously increased costs in designing for a higher sustainability level. So we wanted to include that table just to get a little bit of scale. Obviously, the level of effort reflects costs. So based on the proposals, staff recommended to shortlist down to 3 for interviews. That was HCM Architects, BKV Group, and LHB. All 3 of these firms were listed as the top 3 for each of the staff on the scoring criteria, but they were just in different orders. So it was very clear that these were the top 3 proposals in terms of scope. All 3 of these firms were very capable of doing the work, but very clear separation in terms of costs, knowledge of the project, and project experience to deliver a similar project for Roseville. On September 9th, we did interview the selected firms. Based on the scores in the interview, staff recommends selecting LHB as the architect for the campus master plan for final design. They've done numerous projects with similar size and scope. Project manager, the lead architect, and their team have large experience with large-scale projects, including remodels and expansions projects, which this isn't just a greenfield site, it's a combination of. And then cost of services and hours provided were overall best value of the top 3 firms. So getting into the fees, so they did provide the breakout in 2 parts. So the Maintenance Operations Center and the Licensed Passport Center Dance Studio. So that was because we have different funding sources. So the Maintenance Operations Center cost was a little over $2 million, and that would be funded with the sales tax. The Licensed Passport Center Dance Studio, that's about $631,000. That funding hasn't been fully determined, but either bonding or something or levy, something similar. So the overall cost was a little over $2.6 million. The alternative for a higher sustainability for LHB was about almost $150,000. I think that extra was an extra slide there, so you ignore that last bullet. And then construction manager at risk, just wanted to make note, the RFQ process is running parallel to this process. We did shortlist down to 5 firms from the 8 that were submitted, so that process just is running parallel. We are recommending to bring a recommended firm at the October 13th meeting. So just wanted to keep that in mind. And then the table on the right, kind of related to that, is we did try to summarize a little bit on where this is at in the budget. This is one little aspect of kind of the soft cost portion of the budget of what was presented with the last update of the last study that was completed. So for the overall maintenance operation, the total funding is $64.2 million, which is the referendum costs. The total project budget based on the Civic Campus Master Plan update from July this year was $60.8 million. The soft cost portion of that budget was about $12.9 million. So in this case, with this proposed architect, it'd be just over $2 million. So there would still be about $10.9 million for the other soft costs. When we hire a construction manager at risk, that'll further refine that, but there are other soft costs for permits, furniture, other items like that. But just to give you a little idea, it'll slowly come into picture where we're at with budget, but there's still a lot of other unknowns. But we did that as well for the Licensed Passport Center Dance Studio. So certainly this is just one aspect, but we'll try to update you as we move through the process so we can keep track of where the budget is. So with that, the requested council action, staff would recommend approved selection of LHB for architectural services related to the Civic Campus project. And then if selected, staff would bring the actual agreement for approval at the October 13th meeting, which, as I mentioned, we would at least at that point also have a recommended consultant for the construction manager at risk. So theoretically, we'll have a little closer idea on the cost at that point. But we obviously need to negotiate to get the final costs in the agreement, which we'd bring back in a couple weeks. So with that, I can answer any questions that the council may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fryheimer. Are there questions from the council on the recommendation from the group that worked on the process to get to the selection of the architectural services firm? Councilmember Bauer.
When you conducted the interviews of the 3 firms that you brought in for interviews, did anything really change or swing or something? You don't have to name. I'm not asking you for name, but I'm just curious if after doing that really changed a bunch of things or didn't change. Or
no, I think overall they all scored very well. It's very clear they're all very up to speed on it. Obviously, based on the committees, the group, we all realized LHB could do it. Cost was certainly a factor in that. They were the lowest firm, and they could certainly do the work. They've done a lot of similar projects. Their staff that was at the thing has a lot of experience and horsepower to deliver a large project like this. So we're all very comfortable with the proposal.
Thanks.
Other questions for staff? Councilmember Groff?
Just on that line, have you visited any of the facilities they built in person?
So we have not done that. One of the, as part of the proposal, one of the scope items is for them to provide tours. So, but one of them that they did do is the environmental center. I personally have not been there. Maybe there's other staff that has been there, but the recommended for that is one very local project that they've done. It's obviously similar in terms of kind of some of the customer service, a little bit different in terms of what a maintenance operations center would be, but they had other examples of MnDOT or county structures that would be similar in nature.
Other questions? And just to be clear, the recommendation at this time is not to include the alternate for the B3 design?
So we
Doesn't
didn't
appear to be in the total?
Yeah, we didn't do that. Certainly, we would not recommend probably going to the full B3, but certainly we didn't have a real deep discussion on that. If that's something council wants us to explore further, certainly there'll be some aspects of sustainability. But if we want to shoot for a lead design or other things like that, that's something that's a much higher ask or want. Certainly, it could be like so the B3 standard is really set up for state projects. If you get state bonding funds, you have to design to that. So it certainly could be a modified version of it to some of those working with other projects where agencies have had to deal with that. There are very high standards, so which can be good, but there can also be a lot of costs associated with that. So we didn't really provide a recommendation on that. So certainly we could take any feedback council may have on that as well.
Right. And I know that at the time that we did the fire station project, I don't know that B3 was in existence at that point. Certainly there was lead, silver, and different categories like that. And we ended up at that time on the council sort of choosing something less than lead specific because I think there was, I don't know, $100,000 cost associated with whatever that was just for the certification, let alone designing to it. So I think it'd be interesting to know what ultimately our standard was on the fire station. It was probably Roseville Fire Station standard, or whatever it was. So that may be a challenge to try to track down. But I don't think we want to be ignorant of looking at some of those sustainability aspects of the design. But I also don't know for sure that we want to do the full-fledged B3. Yeah. Mr. Trudgeon.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to recall, I remember that exact discussion. We did not want to pay to be certified because this to even be called that, you had to pay a pretty exorbitant fee. But there was an interest in doing some sustainable efforts, and so we still did that as part of, like, we have a white roof up there. So I think those conversations can be ongoing without official certification, but knowing that we are doing what we can within budget, within what we have for cost. And that might just be an ongoing conversations as we get into the design and start talking about, we could do this or that, and maybe not necessarily be caught up on, are we this certification that we can put up on a plaque. It's more about what's important for the operations and what's the cost effectiveness of that.
How does that affect the contract with the architectural firm? If they're not doing the B3 design, what are we getting for sustainability for the price, and do we have to look at some additional dollars to cover sustainability design? I just want to make sure we're not sort of selling ourselves short. If we're looking for that kind of design work, I don't want to find out that we're not getting that in the current contract proposal.
So certainly there's some level of effort, but there'll be some baseline, sustainability. But to look to a higher degree, higher standards, and really starting to get into really details, there's going to be additional costs to do that. Different iterations on that. So,
is that a conversation to have with LHB as part of the bringing the contract back then?
Yeah, we could certainly do that. That'd be a simple option. Or that's something as we get a little bit further down. Obviously, I don't think the original schematic design will get too detailed into that. And as you come up with costs, maybe that's something that could be added a little bit later as you maybe start detailing the finishes and exact more detailed as you go through the process. So it could be something that potentially could be an add-on service a little bit later as well.
And that might be something we bring forward to the council for, either we'll try to get the information we can. I don't think we want to go to full B3 at that cost, but maybe have some allowance in there for sustainability efforts for the.
Or just know that there's going to be some potential changes over the course of the contract to cover some of those costs. I'd be curious, council thoughts, Councilmember Groff.
And I'm not asking for details tonight because I realize how these things go, but I would like to know what the paybacks are for the different concepts that would be going in there, because some things you do, you know, on any of these, like even on energy audits on homes when they do it, they give you a rundown on this is the payback for insulation, this is the payback for this. And so then you can analyze what the cost effectiveness is of each item. And I don't expect that tonight, or even, it can be a discussion in the future, whether it's, you know, how much time that takes and so on.
Councilmember Schroeder.
Well, and I do like the idea of giving us some flexibility than just saying we're going to go to this particular thing. But so, and anyone who's gone through a construction project knows that you can say, well, you know, this is what's, you know, if you want to do this, this is what it will cost addition, which then we get, you know, there's that opportunity to make that decision, including the paybacks and that. So I do like the idea of, you know, not, you know, saying, yes, we're going to look at it, but not lock it in, you know, so then we can, like you said, let's decide, you know, what's a good payback and what makes sense versus, you know, that certificate only kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I do like the idea of having some flexibility around it.
Right, and certainly probably having more conversation with
Yes.
Exactly.
LHB may inform that,
Yes.
because they may say, oh yeah, this is something we do all the time.
Yep.
It's this, you know, or whatever. Councilmember Strong.
Yeah, I guess I agree with that. I was thinking more like something like a heat pump or something, you know, that's important to know before you get started. That's not an aftermarket thing. You add, oh, well, we have some room here. You know, it's something you have to put
Sometimes
down.
you do it at your skating center. But,
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a lot easier to do it at the beginning.
Right.
So if we make sure we know, I think like Councilmember Groff and Schroeder mentioned, just if we know what that payback is, I know, you know, if you look at solar panels or whatever, they give you, you know, this is when you're gonna, this is your break even time, and if we're paying for this building for a certain amount of time and we hit that over that time, well then it's become cost effective. So I think there's got to be that type of tool to figure out where your ROI when you hit that break even. Because anything we do today is going to be nowhere near what the standard will be in the future. So, you know, if we don't shoot for somewhere in the middle to upper range, we're going to be so far behind before the thing even is up. And that's how it works. But, you know, it'd be nice if we're at least trying to be a little bit closer to get the best we can for the price we pay, I guess.
Right. Do want to provide an opportunity for public comment before we finally take the action on the recommendation to proceed with LHB. So open it up for public comment.
Roger Hess Jr., Wagner Place, and I just can't believe that nobody, with all the money you're going to spend here, that nobody wants to talk about it from the public. I still remember when my father was on the council in the 70s and they were contemplating building this building. There were huge crowds of people up there talking about it. So I don't know why nobody else seems to be interested. But anyway, I hope that before major decisions are, that part of the process for the architect to work on, that you'll give them some options or give them the leeway to give some options, like maybe we can get a better public works building and outdoor storage if the license center is somewhere else, and it gives you more room over there. Because we have a lot of room that you could put that. I mean, you could even put in the current outdoor storage space for public works. Or hope you'll at least have them look into how expensive it would be to build a basement and or a third floor. I mean, the police department needs space. You need to move people out of here somewhere else and give the police department more space. So you can't be doing these things as silos every time. You need to think about other needs of the city that they could be taken care of at the same time. And I still think you could build the whole public works over on the over in Veterans Park if you'd move everything, all the outdoor storage to the Leaf Place, and just keep the fuel station across the street here. Because they don't need to be going to the outdoor storage 20 times a day, I don't think. But I assume they have to get fuel all the time. So I don't think it'd be that big a deal to drive from here to Dale Street to get some salt or whatever they need to get over there. So anyway, good luck and thanks a lot.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak to this item this evening? All right.
Not many left.
We'll close the public comment then and return to deliberation. We do have the request to authorize working up a contract with LHB for their architectural services in the amount of the 2.6 million and change as recommended.
Motion to approve as suggested by staff.
Second.
All right, there's a motion from Councilmember Strawn and a second from Councilmember Groff. Is there a motion to divide the question?
I was gonna say, that's what I was raising my hand for. I'd like to divide the question to do each of those separately.
All right, is there a second? There's a second to divide the question. So it's 2 votes on the main motion. One for the maintenance center services and one for the license center, et cetera, services. So we've got the motion to separate the question. Is there any discussion on that motion? Actually, I'm not even sure there is a discussion allowed under the rule for that. So we have the motion. All those in favor of separating the question signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. So we'll take 2 votes then. We'll proceed first on the motion by Councilmember Strawn and seconded by Councilmember Groff to approve the architectural services for the maintenance facility in the amount of approximately $2 million and some change. Discussion on that motion.
I
Hearing none.
appreciate the work that the group has done. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Second, the motion by Councilmember Strawn, seconded by Councilmember Groff to authorize the architectural services on the license and passport center and dance studio facility, et cetera, for $630 and some change. Discussion on that motion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
That motion passes 3-2 with Councilmembers Schroeder and Bauer in opposition. All right. That is authorized then, and we'll look forward to that contract and perhaps some of that additional information coming back before the council in October. Thank you again to everybody who was on the team that did that review and the process, and we're taking more steps here. That brings us to the end of our business items this evening. Only now 25 minutes behind. That's not too bad. We are at our consent agenda. And Mr. Trudgeon, I'll turn it over to you to introduce those items for our consideration.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We just have 3 items on the consent agenda tonight. Item 10A approves the 2026 insurance benefit renewals and the city cafeteria benefit contributions for city employees. The overall rate increase is approximately 13.6% in 2026, with the employees covering 8.5% of that increase and the city budget covering the 5% remaining of the increase. Due to the increase, the city will be offering 2 additional plans to employees to help manage their increased costs called accountable care organizations that have smaller networks but do have a lower premium. Item 10B approves the final payment for the 2024 sanitary sewer lining project to HydroClean LLC. Then item 10C approves entering into an animal services contract with a company called the Companion Animal Center to provide animal impound and support services for the Roseville Police Department. For the last year and a half, the city has been using the Animal Humane Society, providing these services to Roseville, but the Humane Society recently notified Roseville and the other cities that it served that it will not be able to provide those services in 2026 And that is the consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Mr. Trudgeon. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember
Everybody.
Strawn, in that case. Sorry, Councilmember Schroeder. Discussion on the motion?
I want to think those aren't just minimal things. Each one of those took an immense amount of time to, at least A and C, especially A. I'm in the midst of that, and everyone is facing 20-30% increases to benefits, and so I really thank you for being creative on how you approach that, because it's a sensitive topic with people, and so I think you, and then C there was a lot to know about that too, so thank you.
All right, and if I'm not mistaken, we still have the Employee Benefits Committee that is involved in those
Oh, yep.
discussions
Oh, yeah.
about the programs, the plans, and the costs and all that. So appreciate their work as well, and that's, I think, a key part of how we've been able to keep some control over our healthcare costs as an organization. All right, with that, we've got the motion to adopt the consent items. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Those items are approved. That then brings us to our future agenda review. Mr. Trudgeon.
Yes, our next meeting is next Monday, the 22nd. We need to hold a public hearing for a liquor license for Burger Dive at Roseville. They're having another space, as I understand it, in the mall, outside of Potluck. We also, as we previously talked about, need to approve the preliminary tax levy and budget. We have a minor plat at 2035 Twin Lakes Parkway. It's a commercial lot out there by Walmart and Denny's. Then we have 3 abatements at this point, those addresses listed. And then we'd like to have the council consider approval of an agreement with Stantec to complete the natural resources work plan. As you know, we have received a big grant to do that work. And so Mr. Johnson will be here with a presentation and talking about what the work they'll be doing. Our next meeting after a couple-week break will be on the 13th. We'll look to select the construction manager at risk, as Mr. Freihammer mentioned, receive a street light policy update, and then approve the architect professional services agreement that was just approved. Just to highlight a few things, and you see the meetings we have for the rest of the year. We're down to 8.
All right, thank you, Mr. Trudgeon. Are there questions on the future agenda? Are there any council member initiated items for future meetings or reports or announcements from council members?
We have the captain and clerk on Friday.
6 p.m., I believe, at the Oval.
Fundraiser.
Tickets are still
for
available.
parks.
And at the door, I believe.
At
as
the door,
well.
too.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so we look forward to everybody being out there supporting the
Better
the
weather.
parks. Well, as long as it doesn't snow,
Don't say it.
we've set the bar pretty low.
I know, I
The first
know.
one, so
That's true.
anything better than that is fine, but it looks like it should be pretty good. So with that, if there's no further business before us, the only other item on our agenda this evening is adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Schroeder, second by Councilmember Strawn to adjourn. No discussion on a motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously, and we're adjourned at 9:13 p.m. Thanks, everyone.
Actually, we moved up sometime.
I know.